right, welcome everyone. Good morning. All right, well, happy Saturday. It's a good day to be alive. It's a good day to stand up for what we believe in. And so I just want to welcome everyone once again. We have a great planned morning, so hopefully you're ready for it. But before we dive into anything else, I would like to ask that we pray, ask for the Lord's blessing, and then I'm going to invite Mark up. Let's pray. Lord God, we just want to thank you so much that we can come before you. And God, you've on your principles, this nation was founded. And we see a great power that is resisting it now. Lord God, we want to come before you and ask for your blessings. Give us a courage, give us strength, give us a vision of how we can not only oppose things that are setting up against you or against our children, but give us the courage to also promote things that you love. Let us be kind, let us be loving along the way, and let us represent your kingdom in a way that honors you. Pray this in the name of Jesus, amen. All right, I'm going to go ahead and invite Mark up. He's going to take over from here. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Oh, did you? Thank you, I'm on. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Well, I'm quite honored to come down here to, are we still technically in Vancouver? Yes. City of Vancouver, and to talk to you about faith and politics. How many people here, Mark Malosha is my name, know of me before this day? I know a few people, right? Okay. For those of you who don't know me, I count my blessings many different ways. I'm sure you all do also. Michelle, raise your hand. Michelle right there. I've been married to Michelle, and these are the numbers that count. 38 years, 10 months, and 2 days ago. And together we have 3 children, another important number to me, and 8 grandchildren. So those are how I count my blessings every single day. And I'm very thankful that I've been graced with a faith community and God has touched my life. That is, I believe, the heart of what it means to be a faithful human being and a faithful citizen in the United States. All of us have to define who you are, what you will be known as. And frankly, I am a Christian follower of Jesus Christ, married to Michelle. Everything else is small compared to that. And that's how I live my house. And I will not be silent anymore in America about those issues. But the small details, what are the small details about me? I grew up in New York City, to a very tight Italian Catholic family in Queens, New York. I went off to the Air Force Academy at 17. I graduated there in 1980 and married Michelle 4 hours later. And together we went off into the wild blue yonder to fly airplanes for the Air Force. I ended up flying B-52s. But my story actually, changed because of Michelle. Because 3 weeks after I went to the Air Force Academy when I was 17, I stopped going to church. Up until I left for the Air Force, my parents were making me go to church every Sunday. Does that sound familiar to anybody? But then once I was out my own, no, I didn't have time for that. But then, I was at the Air Force Academy. I remember coming home, telling my mom I was an agnostic, and church is not that very important. She got a little upset, but not too much. But moving fast forward, about 2 years later, I started meeting and dating a young lady, Michelle. And finally, before we went out on a date one Saturday, she said, let's go to church. So I started going back to the church again, not because my parents were making me, it was because Michelle was one of her conditions before we went out on our date on Saturday night. Of course, who wouldn't go to church for an hour to be with a pretty girl for the rest of the evening? So the choice was actually fairly easy for me. But that started me on the road. Reading scripture took me to the next step. Michelle brought me to a small group, a Bible study at our church, where we read scripture, we did a little praying, and then we answered some opening questions of what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. And that got me out of that kind of self-centeredness that I have, and that's very popular in the American culture about, eat, drink, and be merry, make money, worldly stuff, and focused on what God wants you to do. And it took a few years and a couple trials and tribulations, but finally, when I was just about 30, I dedicated my life to Jesus Christ. And since then, the rest was really history. I ran for office. I was a state senator, an elected official for 21 years, a commissioner, a state rep, and a state senate. And each and every time, I did not shy that who I was. People like to get up and say they're a business person, they're a lesbian, they're this or that. I said, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. So my point to all of you is America needs leaders right now willing to stand up and say who guides them, what guides them. And I hope at the end of today you will realize that God is always searching for people to come follow him, to come follow Jesus Christ, to pick up your cross. And I hope you will pick up your cross because we need leaders right now in America. Things are changing in the wrong direction. So unless you pick up your cross, not just our communities will suffer, not just your children will suffer, but the entire country will suffer. So that's my challenge to you. Today I work as the executive director for the Family Policy Institute of Washington. How many people have access to use Facebook? Raise your hand. Okay, good. How many people have emails? Raise your hand. Okay, I want everybody to go onto the web and like FPIW on Facebook and sign up fpiw.org to our email list. You do that, you will know what's going on about politics and faith and religion, what's going to hurt you or help you. Sign up. Knowledge is key to knowing how to respond and knowing what to do to make your community a best place. Does that make sense? Yeah. fpiw.org and sign up to our email list and then sign up on Facebook, and then you will, over time, gain the knowledge about what are the issues and what's going on, and then you can defend your faith and your community in the public square. So can you all do that? Yes. So FPIW is the only statewide Christian policy and advocacy organization in Washington State, the only one. We work with other groups like the Catholic Conference, Human Life in Washington. But we're here to serve you and be that voice for Christians in the public square. Our goal is to make sure God is honored, religious freedom flourishes, marriage and families thrive, and life is cherished. That's our goal. And I think that's a goal Christians of all denominations can rally around. I think that's the core of following Jesus Christ. So we're trying to unite a growing alliance of churches and pastors. Any pastors here? Okay, one. Okay, my goal is to get 200 new pastors signed up on the list, and we're helping the pastors, give them the tools to help do items, stuff like this. Get you energized, know the issues, and give you tips to how to deal in the political arena, the public square. But we're also here to develop activists, like I met Olga. We're here to help activists of all types to keep this culture that we have. This country was formed under Judeo-Christian culture. In fact, it's the heart of Western civilization. But right now we have people trying to destroy this culture. And if that culture goes out, we don't expect good things to follow. So we're here to develop and unite leaders and be that voice, especially today because most people are being victimized or bullied in the public square. Many businesses and families are being victimized and hurt. We're here to help build a movement across the state. Vancouver, Federal Way, Spokane, Seattle, Snohomish County. So that's why I'm down here. We're here, FPIW, and all our 20,000 people who signed up build a Christian movement, uniting with the pastors of all different faiths who can unite on the issues I talked about. Our goal is to ensure Christians have a seat at the policy table when they make laws. Because let me tell you, they're making laws right now that it's going to hurt you and your children and your grandchildren. So that's why I'm here, to ask for your help. Only if we unite and we become a big network do we have the power to stand up to the money and the influence of all those power brokers who actually are, let's be direct, they're at war with us. I did an op-ed about 4 weeks, and I talked about this new war happening, new religious war. From those of you, this country was founded on Puritan people running away from religious persecution in England and Europe 250 years ago. Many in your community came here because we all know that there was religious persecution in the old Soviet Union for ages. The United States is born on religious freedom, letting churches and Christians, people of all faith, be able to practice their religion, teach their religion to themselves and to their children without fear of persecution. But now we have a religious war going on, and we have to be aware of this. Their attacks are increasing, and they're trying to destroy this civilization that we've built up in America. So I hate to say, I need your help. Don't be silent. And this war was started by the nuns. It's called the non-believers, the people with no faith, the old-style pagans. They've joined together with a couple of other growing movements here in the United States, the radical abortion feminists, the socialist movements, the LGBT libertine sexual culture. They've all grown in tremendous size in America the last 2 decades, and they've really came out in the open the last 5 years. They've conquered the Democratic Party. I used to be a Democrat representative. Now it's virtually impossible for a faithful Christian to be in the Democratic Party. So now I am a Republican. That's just straight honesty. I all of a sudden, after it was when President Obama got elected, all of a sudden I became a bigot and a sexist. I hated people just because I practiced my Christian faith. And that was a choice many politicians have. Do you keep your faith in your religion, or do you give it up? Some people gave it up for that 30 pieces of silver. For those temptations, remember the temptations of Christ? Power, ego, ambition. You have to decide who owns you. Jesus Christ, or those people offering you those pieces of silver, those temptations. And that's what's going on right now. And if you don't accept them, they'll work to destroy you. So these nuns are co-opting many religious believers. Don't let them tempt you. Right now, Mormons, Catholics, Baptists, Methodists, Evangelicals, Lutherans, all denominations are under attack. Some have given up already. You know them. They've dealt to the new neo-pagan culture. I believe they'll be gone in 20 years. You give up Christ, your church will die. And right now, it's not enough to be silent or neutral in this war that we have, this political war. You have to be open. That's why I started this off saying who I am. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and I won't be silent. This is what I believe for myself, my family, and my children, and my community. The other side's goal, number one rule in politics is, if you convince your opponent to be quiet, to put your light under the basket, you win. And we all know salt and light, right? If your salt has gone flat, you might as well throw it out. Many Christians and churches and pastors and politicians have put their light under a basket. Their salt has gone flat. And the consequences, as I said, are deadly if that happens. So, as I told you, I was a 20-year Democratic Party member. And this war right now is not going to end, let's be honest, until one side wins or again. Will we go into the direction where the nuns and non-believers turn our country into what you saw, or some of you saw, in the old Soviet Union. We see it when government takes over and suppresses religion. We saw it in China. We saw it in Cambodia. When they know everything, they have to destroy communities and faith communities and families because that interferes with their direction, their power. We don't want that for America. I'm asking for your help. Join this fight. And maybe I should have asked this. Is anybody not aware of this going on in the media? Is anybody aware of this? Does this make sense, what I'm saying to folks? Yes. It is happening every day. Literally, I was attacked for just mentioning this yesterday in the newspaper by my elected official. So this economic terrorism, because now they're going after businesses. For those of you who own businesses or work, soon they won't just be going after your children and your schools, which they're doing right now with these bills. They'll also be going after your businesses until you bow down to what they believe and you silence your beliefs, you hide your light. That is where we're going right now. So how did this happen in America? I bet many of you who came in America didn't see this coming. I know I didn't see it coming. But it's really one reason. The second principle about a democracy or politics I want you to remember. Remember, the first is don't be silent. Whatever it is, always voice your opinion. Tell what you believe in, what you want, what you desire. Don't be silent. The second principle is that it's all about the numbers. In a democracy, the most important number is 50% plus one. Whoever has the most votes wins in this country. Does everybody understand that? Makes sense. An election. Whoever gets the most votes wins. Same with the culture in the United States. Whatever culture has the most believers wins. In our Washington state, I hate to say, we live in either depending on the data, the first or second lowest number of Christians in America. And it's decreasing. Now, Jesus Christ told us at the end of Matthew to go out and make disciples of all nations. Remember that? Everybody know that commandment? We're supposed to change, save souls, right? But unfortunately, if the number of Christians in Washington state in this country keep going down and down and down, and the nuns, the non-believers keep getting greater and greater and greater, who's going to win? Simple math. We're losing because we're not doing what Jesus Christ commanded us, either for our pastors or politically. And you can't win in politics, an election, if Christians are, right now, by some data, we're somewhere around 52%. What happens when we get to 42% or 32%? And the non-believers, or in some countries it's Muslims, they get up to 50%, 60%. What kind of laws will we have in this country then? So that's another reason to speak up, to try to change hearts and minds. Does that make sense? Yes. So if your church isn't going out, not just preaching to the choir, you must, to be honest, you have to preach to the choir because guess what? Especially the children, because they're trying to steal your children, especially with the comprehensive sex ed bill. That's why they're doing it. They're doing it literally to steal your children. They get that. So, but if we don't have enough voters, they'll keep doing that, and then they'll steal your employees at businesses. But we have to go out and do the same thing. Not steal, convert folks. But that's what Jesus commanded us to do. So right now, the nuns are winning. It wasn't by an invasion. They just went after our children and our brothers and sisters. And just like that story with me, thankfully, Michelle brought me back or started me on the road to back. It was only by God's grace and a lot of prayer that I actually made the final leap to being committed to Jesus Christ. But we have to go out there and be that light and make sure our children and our friends and neighbors haven't been seduced or corrupted by the devil with those temptations. So the nuns right now, the non-believers, have conquered all political parties in Canada, England, and most of Western Europe. And now they're aiming here in America. They've taken over the Democratic Party. They're working on the Republican Party. So I'm asking you, not just join FPIW, join a political party. And there's a bunch of teeny little political parties, but right now there's only one political party that believes that we do. Be involved. Danny Westneat, an influential Seattle Times author and self-declared non-believer, he shared his hostility for Christians and the Republican Party. He stated that the GOP, the Republican Party, needed to dump Trump and dump God. So they're not shy about their message about God. They're literally telling publicly, God is worthless. Your parents are wrong when they talk about God and Jesus Christ. They're literally saying it out loud. It's a war, folks. So I was driven out of the Democratic Party, but I wasn't going to be silent. I kept up. And now I'm working in this role, trying to help Christians across the state not be driven from their business, from their schools, and from their community. So, and what are the results of this new ideology that's taken over America? Well, you know all what's happening. In England, for example, you see what's going on with that new ideology. In 8 years, the number of girls who requested reassignment, surgery to change their sex, sexual mutilation, has gone up by 4,000%. And in America, since Roe v. Wade, 60 million babies have already been killed. And now you hear at the national level, in Virginia and New York, they're talking about aborting babies after they're born, killing them after they're born. And 20 million of them are minorities, blacks. It's literally a genocide, a racial genocide against blacks. And you look at sports. Now men who say they're girls, are now routinely winning tracks and sporting events. Biology is fixed. That's the science. But now we have this new construct saying you're teaching our children you can be, and confusing them, you can be whatever you be. And what's the result of this? Depression is surging among children. 69% among 16 to 17-year-olds. They're becoming unmoored. They're becoming narcissistic, nihilistic. They're losing their confidence and their center of gravity. When you turn away from God, what is there? And especially for children, the time where they need their parents around them and a solid foundation to get them through the teenage years, they're suffering. Psychological stress is up. Hopelessness is up. 71% among 18 to 25 years. Suicides have climbed. We're so rich in America, but suicides are up by, 55%. And among 18 to 19-year-olds, well, it's 56% among 18 and 19-year-olds. So that's what happened when you turn people away from God and from what we call normal thinking. But I think there's still hope for us. Still, a great majority of people in America still believe in faith, family, marriage, life. They live within a faith tradition that promotes virtues, and they discourage vices. And politics is a way you take those values and you try to get it passed. So that's what I'm trying to do here, is trying to convert people's values, Christian values, into law. And what laws we have, keep them so they support those values. Because these were the values that we have in Western civilization. And I talked about, and Olga knows this also, we talked about all the bad bills that's going on. One of them is the SB 5395, which is the Comprehensive Sex Ed Bill. I call it the Child Indoctrination Bill. What that bill tries to do is teaching this new radical sexual agenda. Will be teaching children that their parents and their religious beliefs are wrong. It'll turn children against parents and faith. It'll teach children that their parents and religion are sexist, bigoted, homophobic, and hateful, because they oppose this new sexual culture. That's wrong. It'll also teach children, stuff that it is completely against science and biology. this never-ending number of genders rather than male and female. And they say this bill is inclusive, but it's not inclusive of Christians or people of any faith, this new kind of propaganda. Gender disorder. What was once a serious mental delusion, 7 years ago, it was a mental illness in America, is now considered normal, where children are encouraged to perform genital mutilation. That's in America. If the abortion bill passed, then children without the parents' permission will be able to have surgery to try to change their sex. You can't do that. But that'll happen if that bill passes. There's many other bills going on. There's a bill, HB 1742, which will for the first time move and legalize prostitution for children under 18. All in the guise of helping them. We don't want to hurt their feelings. They'll stop if it's not illegal. That's crazy. And then in other states, there's movements to legalize prostitution over 18. That is wrong. And there's another bill, 1742, which for the first time allowed children to display pornography about themselves. It's no longer wrong. It's no longer a crime. So children will be able to do that without fear of consequence or punishment. This is new ideology. Again, it's wrong. So the question I say to you here is, they're coming after your children in Christianity. Will you get involved? Will you get involved? Yes. You have to get involved. As I mentioned, I've been involved for 21 years in elected office. There used to be one or two horrible bills, maybe one bill every other year, 2 bills every other year. Now it's like 12 bills. The radical change is accelerating. It's because Christians have become quiet. And I am scared for America and our civilization, our society, if we don't start fighting back. How do you fight back? Well, there was a great example in England 3 weeks ago. Hundreds of Muslim parents stormed a school board meeting, demanded the anti-Muslim, and in fact it was an anti-Christian also, LGBT sexual agenda not be taught to their children. Or they would take their children out of school. Hundreds did that. It took weeks. The parents started pulling their children out of public schools. Finally, they gave up. School board said they're temporarily going to stop teaching. That's how you fight back. You show your passion. You get involved. You act. You stand up and let your light shine. Are we doing it in America? My pastor for my church, I go to a Catholic church in Federal Way, wrote a speech, homily, whatever it is, in the parish bulletin, talking about this bill. He recommended we have to start thinking about taking our children out of public school because of this. I need pastors and Christian leaders that serious. Or are you willing to go that far, like the Muslims did in England, and show the people in power that you will not be silent? That's what we have to do to get their attention. We're not doing it yet, though. It's the Muslims that make the news. We have to get angry and passionate and fight back. And if we do that, we can win. Jesus Christ said, "A house divided cannot stand. A kingdom divided cannot stand." You're familiar with that, right? It's time for Christians of all faiths to join together. So not just Baptists only talking to Baptists, or Catholics only to Catholics, Mormons to Mormons, you get it. We all have to join together and find other believers and say enough is enough. It's a war against Christianity in America, and we can't be divided. So we'll unite. Go reach out to pastors and churches in your community. Reach out to other believers all across the state and join this fight. Will you? Yes. Thank you. If we do this, if all of us Go out, join the Republican Party, FPIW, get activated in your church. Start learning the issues, challenging the politicians with letters and op-eds. You will make a difference. So you're going to FPIW, you're signing up, you're going to get involved in your political parties. You're going to develop leaders in your congregation, work with your pastors and other religious leaders. And then you're going to write the letters to the editor, look at the emails, send emails, Facebooks, be involved in that fight, let your light shine. Then you're going to go to your town halls. How many people went to the town halls this last week? Okay, a couple people. Go to the town halls, go to the school board meetings. Let your voice be known, because the other side is doing that. Lastly, get loud, get passionate. Let them know what you stand for. They're stealing your children. They're persecuting your religion. If you can't get angry and passionate about Jesus Christ and your children, there's nothing else to get passionate and upset about. So fight. Be passionate like the founding fathers in America did 200 years ago. When they came to this country, like I said, fleeing tyranny, they fought. And they settled a free country. Fight like they did in America when we fought that Civil War against the evils of slavery. Christians fought. Fight like they did when we fought for women and for the right to vote, for dignity of women. Fight like they did 50 years ago as we had the big civil rights movement with Martin Luther King. Christian pastors united with other activists and fought and fight in all the state and the nation's capital. It ended all the laws about discrimination. Now we have a fight this year. This is the fight for our generation. I need you to be part of that fight. This is a fight for our children, our grandchildren, our faith, our family. This is a fight for the country, America, which you all came over and now American. So let us go forth, 2 by 2, right? Jesus commanded his disciples to go out 2 by 2, go out into every town, go out to the town halls, and let them hear your voice. But we must meet our enemies with prayers and kindness and love, and boldly proclaim to them the gospel of Jesus Christ. We will let our light shine, and we will win this fight. God is calling all of you this year, today, to join this fight. Thank you. Any questions right now for what I've started? Yes, ma'am.
Could you give us the numbers of those bills that you talked about?
Yes, I can. First of all, I'll say if you go to fbiw.org, we have a legislative update thing. You go there, you see the entire list of bills. So that's why it's good there. It says legislative update. And so, like I said, there's literally like 20 bills we're tracking. The worst ones, which I talked about, let's see. And like I said, I couldn't even talk about, they're all 5395. That's the one with the child sexual comprehensive sex ed bill. Then there's 1742. That's the one that's going to allow, it's no longer a crime for an under 18-year-old to engage in prostitution. 1742 is the one that's for the first time allow a person to engage in, to sell or distribute child pornography of themselves, and it'll be legal. So a child could do that with no fear of consequence. And 5602 is the abortion child sexual surgery bill. For the first time, a child could get, and it's already happened, I believe, in Oregon, right? A court ruled it, but now it'll be legal in Washington, and it'll pay. The government will pay for a child to change their sex without parental approval. And they want to teach it in class. It's unreal. That should get everybody upset. But there's about 6 other bills there. But go to the site.
How can we identify the specific individuals and organizations that are
And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But if you follow us, we give you updates, tell you who to follow. The short answer is virtually, except for maybe one or two exceptions, virtually every Democrat supports it. That's it. The Democratic Party has taken over by, as I said, by the socialists, the gays, the radical feminists with abortion, and what was the last group I mentioned? Oh, the nuns, the non-believers, completely been taken over. But if you want to know individually, we tell you. That's what we put on our site, and we show you how to look up a bill to see who votes for it or against it. But the short answer, what I'm doing in various communities, because the reason we want to help groups, because there's like I said, 200 communities across the state. There's 49 legislative districts. There's 300 school boards. So we can't track them all. We kind of track the state ones. But if you tell me who your legislators are, I can tell you if they're supporting it or not. Do you know who your legislators are? Right. And that's what we teach folks. But we're looking for local leaders because we give the information and we help them disseminate that to their church, their group, whatever it is. But that's what you will learn. How to find out who your legislators and where they're voting. Some people are very obvious. They say, I'm going to vote for this or against it. Others hide. And you have to do a little bit of work, like we're doing in Federal Way, where I'm from, doing a little bit of work trying to ask them, but they don't want to answer the questions. If they're not answering the questions, probably, not in all cases, probably they're against you. Somebody else had a question.
Do you know the age of consent for that prostitution bill that you were just talking about?
Yes. Basically, this is my coffee, right? Yeah. Currently, right now, it's illegal for anybody of any age to engage in prostitution. With this bill, when this bill passes, it says the bill basically says it is no longer a crime for anybody under 18 for prostitution. So it basically says if you're 17 years, 12 months, 11 months, and 29 days, it is no longer a crime.
Or 12 years old?
Or 12 years old, right. And frankly, folks, and I've said this before, there's a movement to emancipate children from their parents and emancipate them sexually like it is abortion. You can have an abortion at any age, paid for by the government in this country. Now, there's some people here who think it, and if I had legislators tell me this, they want children to be sexual free creatures anybody can have sex with. That's where this country is going. But that ideology has been there ever since the early Jewish prophets talked about it, right? We thought we won that when Christianity took over the Roman Empire. But now we're going back to the days. And again, this is the steps.
Just because I have the mic. I just found out Joanna Olson Kennedy, who's one of the leading sex reassignment surgeons in the country, her clinic, I'm sorry I don't know the name of her clinic, but they have just dropped their age of consent for children to consent to sex reassignment with the hormones and treatments and so forth, down from 13 to 8. So they're allowing third graders to make that decision now.
That's right. It's crazy. And they're coming for your children. I'm really serious. They're coming for your children. It's unreal. But that's what happens when you throw away Christianity in a culture. So we have to evangelize and get those numbers up and go change hearts and souls. We have to go out there and convert folks. Jesus commanded us. We're not doing it, so the other side's winning.
Mark, what can we do with our pastors, the ones that are holding back? I actually talked to my senior pastor, and his staff member said, sorry, this war on children is a real low priority with us. We have to preach the gospel. How would you respond to that?
Well, pastors are human beings, like everybody else. So, having a courageous pastor, just like having a courageous activist or a courageous mom or a courageous politician, it's tough getting the slings and arrows. Let's be honest. Being a follower of Jesus Christ, when they say you will pick up your cross, you do pick up your cross. So, like anything else, it's work on your pastor. What do you do when people out there? Now we hope our shepherds, go out and be able to return, the sheep that wanders away, bring them back to 99. But that's what we need. We need courageous pastors like we need courageous activists. There's no key to do that other than trying to convince them with love and kindness that this is important, this is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And right now they're killing us, taking our children away. I mean, they're brazen about this. Child pornography? Who would have thought they can get away with doing that? Pornography? Sex change for your children without parental permission? I mean, who would have thought that would happen 10 years ago? I didn't. But that's what happens. You know, it happens real quick.
You're saying that there's a bill that would allow them to basically sell themselves to prostitution. Has the age to work decreased too? I mean, if they're allowing them to do that.
What this bill, in the guise of human trafficking, says it's basically is it is no longer a crime to engage in prostitution if you're under 18. Now, if you procure it, it's still a crime. But if you're a young boy or girl and you're out there in the street, obviously trying to sell yourself, police can't pick you up because what they're doing is not a crime. They think that prevents that stops children from engaging in prostitution. I don't get the logic. You make it not a crime, and that will tend to discourage them. But that's the logic. And at the same time, there's a huge movement to legalize prostitution over 18. I mean, but we know what they're going. There are people think it's a right to have sex with children. That's where they're going, whether the parents want it or not. Okay, good. Let's go over to. Can we watch that video?
My family immigrated from the former Soviet Union, specifically Kiev, Ukraine, and we as believers came to the United States, under the status of religious persecution. Our beliefs were a problem. The government couldn't control it, and they didn't want it. They didn't like it. I see this flash, program, infringing on that ability. When they're teaching our kids a certain something, and we as Christians are now considered, a problem, And to me, that's very sad to see this breakdown, in the fabric of the American society.
The state of Washington is forcing new gender identity and sex ed guidelines on every public school. The approved curriculum sexualizes children at an early age and invites them to question their gender identity. This radical curriculum undermines parental authority with dangerous, medically inaccurate, and explicit information, with children role-playing and discussing controversial topics. But concerned parents and others just like you are fighting back. This is one of their stories.
I was one of 2 parent representatives in the district that was selected to be on this instructional materials committee. We didn't get to look through the textbook or the curriculum, but I didn't like that it was from Seattle, because that's a district that is so different value-wise than ours, our small little district here. She said that was the only one the OSPI said they could use. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't, for a sex ed curriculum that's an option in this district, I thought that doesn't sound right. Why would the Office of Public Instruction say that this is what you have to use? You have to use ours and pay for ours.
I actually ordered from King County Health the entire set of flash curriculum binders. If you look at the sites that this material sends kids to, they're strongly pointed at support of alternative lifestyles and views.
It has numerous reminders throughout the curriculum that students can get birth control, they can get pregnancy tests and abortions without parental consent.
Said, I don't think I can spread this word, but I think people need to show up to this board meeting and find out what this is about.
We showed up there to hear the read-through of the curriculum and then stay further for the general school board meeting.
And then the second reading, which would make it permanent, would make the decision final, was 2 weeks later. So we had a couple weeks to try and organize.
So I reached out to a group of my contacts with the Slavic community as well as others, and simply just informed them about what was going on here in Battleground, and told them about the dates and times that these were going to be voted on.
So we went, in a matter of 3 weeks, we went from not knowing anything about this to having almost 250 people show up at the meeting that night, and where it was announced that they were going to put the curriculum on hold. So it was a great thing, a very rewarding.
I'm into this because I saw this for what it really is. It's an attack upon children. And it's kind of an unfair attack at that.
To the people who are sitting on the sidelines, to the people who are on the fences about, should I get involved? Does it even matter? I would tell them to really shake that off. You know, it's a very bad mentality to have a defeated mindset about stuff like this. People don't want to wake up that one day and get a new taste of a reality where they don't have the rights, where they don't have the freedoms. You absolutely must act now.
Because what's coming is the war on nuclear family, the war on children, the war on a healthy state of any country. That is the foundation. And so I saw that, I was like, this is crazy. What we're doing is promoting something that is going to overturn the rights of majority. And we are silent because we don't know.
We just want to continue and encourage people. Look what happened at Battleground, you know, when we showed out with those types of numbers. And if you get together, if you get a consensus, we have information, we have medical information, we have legal information, at least for the state of Washington, and resources. So we just want to encourage you that, you know, if you become a voice and a presence, you can make a difference.
Yeah. Thank you. So we can win. Wave your hand. No, right there. We know how to win. Talk to Randall if anybody knows what happens in Battleground. But it talks about energizing, fight, and realizing we're in a war, folks. It's not just against what's here on earth. There are other forces involved. There really is. It's a war for our souls. And we have to fight. Do you want to say something?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are in a war whether we like it or not. Our Heavenly Father is expecting us to rise up to this occasion. He is the person that designed families. He is the person that put fathers in place, and he's the person that put mothers in place as parents to teach their children how to live virtuously and righteously before the Heavenly Father. If we in this nation now are going to overcome the forces of darkness which are flooding our land, it will happen to the degree that we can have the very same spirit that Elijah had when he said, I've come, and it's in Malachi 4:11, you can look this up, okay, that he has to come to get the hearts of the fathers back to the children and the hearts of the children back to the fathers. That means that fathers are to ask, please put your love, Heavenly Father, back in my heart so that I will care about what is happening to not only my children, but everybody else's children. Jesus said, love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, but he also said, you need to love your neighbor. And he said who your neighbor was, that person, that child that's lying in the ditch. If we can pray across this nation and have the love from God restored, rebirthed in our hearts for our children, we will win this war.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. So my heroes right now are the Muslim parents in England and the Slavic community in Battleground. So the question is how can we have other faithful communities in different other cities here in Washington State become not just my hero, but the heroes for all? We need winners like that who are willing to stand up for Jesus Christ and be involved in this war. But, like I said, we're fortunate in the United States. They're not killing Christians like they are in Africa and other parts of the world, or like it used to happen in other countries. Well, in China, it's kind of happening. But here, it's a war of words. They're going to go after your pocketbook. They're going to call you ugly names and everything else. But the arrows aren't as strong here. So we should be doubly impressive. I mean, and I dare anybody to be more passionate than a follower of Jesus Christ. And so that's my challenge to you here, or my call to you, is to get involved. We have to take over town by town, school district by school district, politician by politician. But if we don't go out and evangelize, we're doomed. So the path is clear. We need a religious awakening in Washington State, and we've had lots of religious awakenings. God is with us. Who could be against us, right? It's that easy. We have the best message in the world. We can't lose with the best message in the world. Okay, so that's the big picture. You're all joining FPIW. You're joining a local political organization, probably the Republicans. You're going to be active at school boards and emails. You're going to let your light shine. And that's what you learn from here. You're going to be involved. This is a long-term fight. Remember that. It's not going to be over next week, next month. No, it's going to be fast. It's going to be, I think it's going to be like the civil rights struggle was in it's going to be a 10-year fight. Either we're going to go completely down or we'll win. 10 years. I know I'm still going to be around. I think everybody in this room is still going to be around in 10 years. So everybody could be part of this struggle. Okay, now let's go back to, now I'm going to switch over to the more academic side. By the way, I'm curious, how many people saw that video before it was shown? Okay, so a few did. Okay, good. But there's lots of success stories going on. I just tell you, in Federal Way right now, we had a lot of help in the Slavic community there. Came out for our town halls and for the school board meetings. The papers are not covering it all. The school board president is becoming a real bully. I mean, so they start fighting back. So that's what you expect. But again, we got our faith on our side. So it should be, we should win this. Okay, let's talk about the structure of government. This is kind of political science 101. So a lot of you may already know it, but it's good to go over the basics. As I said, we live in a democracy. Actually, we live in a republic. We have stuff like the Electoral College. We have this House and Senate. Every state, for example, has 2 senators at the national level, right? And then we have congressmen appointed by population. So the states with lots of population have more representatives, like California. The states with little population have 1, like Wyoming. But everybody's got 2 senators in the Senate. But then, so all states have equal power in the Senate. But in the House, what happens is the states with the more population have more power. California got, I believe it's like 20% of all the votes are just from California. So now Washington State has, well, I shouldn't, is it 11? I think 11 congressmen. So we're in the top half. We're above average for having congressmen. Now, that's the federal government. In Washington State, in Olympia, we have a House and Senate, right? 2 chambers. But it's divided evenly. No, pardon me. It is divided by district, the same district. For example, they take the state every 10 years, divide it into 49 equal districts, equal by population. So every district has roughly 145,000 people living in it right now. And every district has 1 senator and 2 state reps. So that means there are always half the number of senators than there are state reps. So 1 senator for 2 state reps in every district. And does anybody can tell me right off, what district are we in right now? Are we in the 49th? 17th? 18th? 17th. So 17th's got 1 senator and 2 state reps. The Senate runs every 4 years, the state reps every 2 years. At the national level, the senators run every 6 years, and the reps are every 2 years. So that's the difference between state and federal. And then you have, like federal government, state government, and then you have local government. And there's a zillion local governments out there. There are school districts, there are water and sewer districts, there are park districts, there are transportation districts, there's, let's see, what else is that? Fire districts, city halls, towns are different than cities. There are counties. And all of them have kind of a legislative branch, a council. Sometimes it could be 11 members. A lot of them, some of them are down to 3. Some of them have 5. They're all different. Local governments are arranged all different ways. And then sometimes you have an executive, like a mayor or a school board president or a county executive. Sometimes they don't have one and they just appoint one who's just kind of a figurehead. So at the local level, the number of ways they divide up power is completely different and it's somewhat, unique. So that's America. There's no really set way to organize each of the governments, except the federal level is set, the state level is kind of set. And but at the local level, it's all many different ways. And everybody has their role. The top of the ticket is the federal government. The top of the ticket is the Constitution. And it's really hard to change the Constitution. Then you have federal laws, and then you have state laws, then you have local laws. So a federal government can make a rule, can overrule everybody below them if it doesn't interfere with the Constitution. Same thing with state. The state can make a state law that overrules every city, county, school board. So that's what's going on in our state capitol right now. They're trying to pass a new sex ed bill. Right now, every district can kind of sort of choose their own sex ed program right now. No, with this bill, the state's going to take over. The state's going to decide for everybody what sex ed program is, as long as it's approved by OSPI. But OSPI is run by Planned Parenthood and the gay community. Just pure and simple. They run it. So it's only approved ones coming out of the Office of Superintendent of Public Education would be ones that are liked by those groups, not by anybody else. So they control that organization. That's called power, political power. And they have that political power because they backed the superintendent. He won the statewide election, and that's what happened. The law is written where he gets to decide, he gets to approve any sex ed program. If we had a state that was more balanced, that switched between Democrat and Republican, the Democrats wouldn't pass a law that says the OSPI gets to pick it. Because, for example, if I run for superintendent next year and I win, what kind of sex programs do you think I'll be developing? It'll be something that would be friendly and supported by Christians. But unfortunately, we haven't had somebody that represents our values in an office for over 40 years. So the same party is controlling it. The same groups are controlling it. Same thing like the governor. The governor has been controlled by Planned Parenthood for 40 years. If we get a different governor, then we can start changing the laws. So right now the laws are written in such a way, they know somebody that is against our values will always do that. So they say, oh, OSPI gets to approve it. If we were a Republican state or a pro-life state, they wouldn't be doing that. So that's how it works as far as power at the 3 different levels. And but there's one thing you always should know. Trump has made a big statement talking about the deep state. Have anybody ever heard of that thing or word? It's called the bureaucracy running things. I've passed a lot of laws as a legislator. And then it goes over to the executive branch, and the bureaucracy kind of twists it or don't implement it correctly. See, when you pass a law, that's not the last step in how bills get enforced. You see in Seattle, right? Heroin's illegal. Prostitution's illegal. But the bureaucracy decided we're not going to enforce the laws. So you see how it works? The bureaucracy has a lot of control if they decide not to do stuff. That's why I believe Seattle's somewhat falling apart. They've legalized drug use in Seattle. They're not arresting anybody unless they have over $300 worth of drugs. They're not arresting anybody unless they steal over $300. So, of course, crime and people going into stores and shoplifting is rampant because police don't come unless you steal more than $300 worth of goods. Well, how long do you think it takes for the criminals to figure it out? So you have a law in the book, but if the deep state, the bureaucracy, decides not to enforce it, what happens? So that's another way laws get done. So you have the branches making laws, bureaucracy enforcing it or not enforcing it or twisting it, or you have judges look at law and says, sex now means it could mean whatever you want it to be. They just make up terms, redefine English words. So that's another way it happens. Bureaucrats or judges just redefine what words mean. So that's why, as a legislator, I was constantly frustrated, passed bills that meant one thing, but then somebody just takes that bill or law and then twists it to mean something the complete opposite. And the way you fight that is you pass another law, or you take control of government and you change the bureaucracy, or you sue, hire a lawyer, sue, and then maybe you'll get a judge says, no, you're going to have to enforce that law. So that's how kind of America works. There's a lot of ways to get around laws. There's a lot of ways to make laws. But the standard political science way is you got to pass a bill through the House, Senate, and the governor's got to sign it. Does that make sense? You see? And that's why all branches are always fighting each other. And sometimes we win, sometimes they lose. I mean, it's just like the fight, like I said, with heroin right now. Seattle, the bureaucracy doesn't want to pass a law legalizing heroin. They'll just do it the back way, you know. And that's what they've effectively done with all prostitution. They've stopped arresting anybody for prostitution in King County. So that's just like making it legal, right? They didn't never pass a law. That's the way you should do it. They just tell the police not to arrest anybody, or they tell the prosecutors, don't prosecute anybody, let everybody free. Does somebody have a question?
We have to be very careful that we don't let go of the 10th Amendment, and that's very part of what you said, because the federal government only has its enumerated powers.
Well, that's a good example. Explain what the 10th Amendment is.
It says that the federal government has enumerated powers, and it has power in this area, this area, this area. If it's not in those areas, the power is reserved to the states and to the citizens.
Correct. The Constitution is the top document, the top law in the land. So if the law isn't, if it isn't in the Constitution, then the state should control that area. That's what it says in what the printed words of a Constitution says. So if it's not written in the Constitution, then it's a state issue. For example, marriage, right? There's not one word about marriage in the U.S. Constitution. But they got 5 judges who all of a sudden decided, yes, it's kind of in there. Just like abortion. Is abortion in the Constitution? No. So if it's not mentioned in the Constitution, the 10th Amendment says then it's states decide. So guess what? So you had 5 judges redefine what the Constitution, the words of the Constitution means, and says, we say it's in there, even though it's not in there. We just unilaterally say it's in there. I mean, that's delusional, right? It's crazy. But that's what happens when democracy only works if you have people in integrity in it. So you have people say, oh, abortion is in the Constitution, so we're going to make it a federal law. And they went right against the 10th Amendment. Yes, sir.
What power does the county sheriff have if he believes that? What power does the county sheriff have if he believes that what's being taught to a child is child abuse? Especially now that they've proven that viewing explicit words in pornography causes temporary brain damage to a person's brain.
Well, the sheriff is part of the executive branch. They're elected or they're appointed, but their whole goal is to enforce the laws. Now, just like we saw what happened with that Jesse Smollett story in Chicago. Did you all saw that story? That actor, gay black, said somebody with a MAGA hat, or a couple people with a MAGA hat, beat him up at night. It was a pure fake attack. Remember that? Right. So what happened was he ended up lied. False police report. Lots of money was spent, caused untold anguish, these accusations. So the sheriff, or this case, the police enforced the law, but then the prosecutor said, at the end of the day, we're not going to prosecute them. So at the end of the day, sheriffs can enforce all the laws they want, or how they look at it, but at the end of the day, the next step is the people who decide whether it goes to trial is a different group. So a sheriff could, by his judgment, arrest somebody for X, Y, or Z, but at the end of the day, it's somebody else decides whether that person is going to get prosecuted or be held accountable. See, a division of power. The system only works if every person has integrity and all follows the law correctly. If one decides not to follow the law, then the system falls apart. The police decide we're not going to enforce the laws, or a prosecutor decides we're not going to charge anybody for X, or whatnot. So democracies fall apart when you have people without integrity in place. Does that answer that question? Okay, one thing else about America. Remember I said you can pass laws by passing the House and Senate, or council can pass the laws, but in Washington State we have something called an initiative process. Voters can, either at the local government or the state level, get a whole bunch of signatures and put it on the ballot. So in a lot of elections you see those initiatives or referendums. Everybody familiar with that? Seen that? But that's another way you could bypass Congress or bypass the state legislature or your city council, is you do a referendum, and then the voters decide what becomes a law or not. So that's another way a bill could become a law, and how the government is structured. Okay, now, who are the different politicians? That was one of the other questions I was asked to explain. Well, you have like I was, elected official. I was elected. I was in, let me see, how many different, 3 different, I was a water commissioner, state rep, and state senator. So I held 3 different offices. And like I said, there's thousands of them in Washington State. Our state, we have a lot of offices, a lot more than other states. Representative Vicki Kraft. Wave, yes. One of our champions down in Olympia. So we have elected officers, like Representative Kraft. Then we have non-elected folks. And they're really politicians also, like the bureaucrats I talked about earlier. You could be a sheriff and appointed, or a sheriff and elected. You could be an agency director. You could be somebody else who is appointed on some sort of commission or something else that has power. And that in America has a lot of influence. And these folks, again, because they're the ones who kind of direct or enforce the law, have a lot of power. And like I said, and they're in government, but there's a lot of other non-elected politicians, like the people on the party. Anybody here engaged in the Republican Party? I'm just curious. Raise your hand. Okay. 2. Okay. The Republicans and Democrats each have organizations called parties, local level people, then state and county folks. And they're very influential. They get involved with policy. They help win elections, but they help influence, policy. So by any reasonable definition, they're politicians. Other is the media. I don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but the media takes sides on different fights. You wish the media was fair and transparent, treat both sides fairly and only tell the truth and only the facts. But the media in our country has increasingly gotten partisan or slanted or dishonest. They've become just like any other politician out there. And so you have to know that. And by looking at the different papers, you know which ones are doing an honest job just getting out the facts versus ones who's actually just like any other politician and spinning folks left and around. Then you have what's called the interest groups. So there's lots of other groups out there. They're all over the place. They could be an interest group having to do with business, with unions, the environment, with education. There's literally thousands of groups out there that are formed for one reason or another who try to influence legislation. Frankly, I'm now an interest group. Family Policy Institute of Washington is here to represent Christians out in the public square. So that's what I am now, elected to now I'm kind of a interest group type politician, trying to change policy, working with people, grassroots, trying to influence folks out there. The LGBTQ community has groups. Planned Parenthood and the feminists have groups, on and on and on. Conservatives have different sort of groups. So they're all across the spectrum, but they help make politics work for good or bad, depending on your viewpoint. And then you look at the basic activists, people who just decide to stand up and make a difference just on one issue. They get involved, just like you saw those folks getting involved there on the video. They stand up because if something happens, they fight their town hall or the school board, and they become involved temporarily. There's lots of folks like that. And that's what I'm asking all of you, to do. Maybe that's just the first step. Get involved in a local issue, but then next thing, do it like I did. First fight I got involved was trying to defeat the abortion initiative in 1990. I was 32 years old. I rallied all the Christians in Federal Way, and I tried to defeat that initiative. I actually defeated it in Federal Way. And from there, then I ran for office, and I moved into those other spots. But that was my start into politics. I joined the party, and on and on and on. Then you have just opinion makers, people out there. They could be business leaders or folks all on their own who out there just making noise or just writing op-eds. They could be somebody in a university. They could somebody that just has a platform they could do. It could be a pastor. Out there in the public square, opinion makers. And then lastly, there's just average citizens, who just randomly decide to show up one day and just see what's going on, or come down to Olympia, see what's going on and get involved just kind of individually, maybe just for one day or so. So there's many ways to be a politician and let your light shine. Again, the key is how much, how loud, how long will you be involved? And that's for each of you to decide. And again, the point today is we're in a war right now. All hands on deck, right? Naval term. All hands on deck. Because right now, the other side is working to destroy us, literally. That is their end goal. And do we want to look like the old Soviet Union or China or Cambodia? It's radical when they get in power. So those are the different type of politicians there are. And of course, then there are judges, and judges technically shouldn't be politicians, right? Judges just look at what the law says and say, oh yeah, A or B, and they all should generally agree what the words are of the law. But now you start seeing judges now acting like politicians, saying, no, we'll cross out that sentence in the Constitution, or that word is irrelevant. No means yes. I've literally seen judges rule stuff like that where the word means the literally opposite. So that's a politician. That's not a judge just reading the words and just looking at what the words mean, literal definition, and ruling accordingly. They just make stuff up or invent new ones out of whole cloth. And unfortunately, the way America the Constitution was designed, the politicians or the people, using discretionary judgment should be only the legislators. That's it. The executive branch has to follow the law. They don't interpret it, but they do. Judges should follow the law. They should just look at the law and judge based on the law, but now they interpret or make stuff up. So being a legislator right now is starting to be less and less important. In fact, the most powerful people right now are the judges. Judges who could just make up words. I mean, why do you need a legislative branch if you have judges making up law? Now you start seeing why in America we don't have any more constitutional amendments anymore. Because why go through the whole trouble of doing a constitutional amendment when you could just get 5 judges and they could change the Constitution? So that's why judges right now, in my mind, is kind of the biggest thing wrong with our democracy right now. And again, come back to that point I made. If you don't have people in politics with high integrity and ethics, the whole system falls apart. Corrupt people leads to corrupt government and leads to harm and destruction. So unfortunately, that's the system we have right now, and we have to fight against that. Okay, how are we doing on time? Another 20 minutes here. Let's see. Vicki, do you want to come up, or how do we want to do this? Come up here. Vicki Kraft. Good seeing you. How do you? Yes.
Well, I really appreciate all of you being here, and I know you guys have a lot of questions.
Oh, good.
Thank you. I need that. Thank you. Is this better? Can you hear me a little bit better? I just really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. I've gotten to meet many of you. I am Vicki Kraft. I'm a representative for probably some of you in the 17th Legislative District right here in Vancouver, Washington. It's essentially Central Clark County. Real quick, just so some of you know, it's east of I-205, west of 164th Street. And then if you think of Highway 502, go on the north end near Battleground, that's your north border, and all of that down to the river. So hopefully that gives you a little snapshot. So if you're in that area, I'm your state representative representing you, one of them, in Olympia. And just being here with all of you today, I'll tell you, just being able to stand with you and fight for the values that are important for our families is so key. And I wanted to say thank you to, I still call you Senator Mark Milosha, the good senator, has served the people well and now is in a very critical role for this time. And I don't know how far along you were and what you were going to say, but I can give you a little bit of a break.
Go ahead. Yeah.
We'll just tag team here, so we'll put a pause on what the senator was saying. It is so critical, just like Mark said. I mean, really, I got involved, 2012 was when I started. Got involved in the local Republican Party. I had just gone to a couple of the Lincoln Day dinners, the annual fundraisers, gotten to meet really just a couple people. But one of those people said to me, Vicki, would you be interested in being the secretary on the Republican Party board? We have some people running, but we don't have anybody for this spot. And it was just kind of one of those, it wasn't this grandiose position. It was elected by some of the local grassroots precinct committee officers. And I'm like, this is the opportunity I've been waiting for. I mean, the Lord had put it on my heart to serve in this type of a position, but you start somewhere. And so it was very clear that he had opened a door at that point, so I stepped through it. And, here I am, really not that much later, only 4 years later, I was running for office in 2016. It was absolutely an accelerated God thing. I could never, ever, ever have made this happen or lined it up. And just to give you guys so much so, just to give you the hope and encouragement that what you're doing here today could lead to wherever God wants you. I moved here to Vancouver, Washington in 2009. Okay? So let's just think about that. 10 years I've lived here and I was elected. That's God. So I just say that humbly. I'm honored to serve, but what you're doing today is critical, right? We're all having to fight on the front lines. I've known Piper for a while in the fight. Do you want to come up here for a second? We're going to just keep passing it off. I want to ask Piper to come up because she made me aware of something. I'm like, oh, that's exactly what we need, and it goes back to FPIW. So I want to introduce you. This is Piper McEwen, for those who may not know. Piper's been also involved. We work together on the Republican Party board here for the county. And she has been a very strong advocate. She's a mom. She's a strong family fighter. So with that, I want her to share some information with you. So Piper?
That's right. I was actually just a mom, and I became a precinct committee officer, and that's where we met. So anyone, if I can do it, you can. What I just wanted to tell you about really briefly is I met the Family Policy Institute of Washington up at the Christian Heritage Homeschooling Conference about 4 years ago. And I'll never forget, they had a panel, and it was Danielle Turricini, who is one of the main people up there. And I remember being so encouraged because they were standing up for the right to life and marriage and parenting without the government and the right to practice your faith. I just thought, oh, that's my kind of place. And then I remember telling Danielle, I said, we were talking about the local politician, Democrat we don't like. And she said to me, do you pray for him? You know, do you pray for the Democrats? And I remember thinking, no. And she said, let's do that right now. And so we did. Right up there, and I thought, these are the kind of people I want to associate with. I like this. This is the kind of politics I want to be a part of. So down here in Clark County, we have almost 500,000 people. Do you realize that? We have almost over 500,000 people that live down here. There's 7 different areas. And what's really exciting is that the more of us, the more times we have events like this and get together and then we meet each other, like me and Tanya up at Olympia a couple weeks ago, we have a network that's amazing, that can really be a voice. So we started a Facebook page. It's Clark County FPIW. It's a private page, so it's not like one of these, ugly argument kind of places. It's a place where we can find out what's going on locally, what's happening in Battleground, what's happening in Hawkinson, what's happening in Camas, what's happening with Vicki. How can we pray for Vicki? So we're going to have a sign-up sheet out on the table if you want to be invited, because my thought is, let's see how many people we can add to our Clark County FPIW page so we can network and encourage each other and keep spurring one another on. So thank you again for coming. Really appreciate it. It was really great to meet you.
Thank you, Piper. Thank you so much, Piper. And this is really, this is so critical. I'm so bummed. I had this letter that I brought home from Olympia yesterday just for this meeting, and I changed my purse out this morning, and I left it in the other purse. So I want to just tell you really quickly, your voices are being heard. All of you down here, all of you coming up to Olympia, those of you sending letters, calls, standing, and I know you guys are doing it, and I so appreciate it. Literally, my legislative assistant, Laura, which many of you got to meet up in Olympia, she said that we've had easily 1,200, or not 1,200, but easily 1,000 emails, calls just to my office, right? So praise God. Thank you guys, because you're the ones helping to lead this charge. I want to tell you, because of all, that you all really have been doing, I put that into a press release, and we released it out, and I named our state superintendent, Chris Reichdahl, and I probably did make a little bit of a technical error. I said that he was pushing curriculum that blah, blah, blah. Well, they have reviewed it, and it is approved on their site. He made the comeback that, he wanted me to redact or take back what I said in the article. So I said, let's meet, shall we? I'd like to meet with you. So I took the opportunity to meet with him and voice your concerns. That's what I did. I will tell you, he pushed back and said, well, the curriculum is a local level decision. And I read to him. So thank you, Dawn, and some of the others that gave me, I said, here's what I need from you guys. And this is how powerful you are. I said, I need from you the exact verbiage out of the flash curriculum, right, the most egregious. Put it by age level or grade level, right? Yeah, everyone knows. So I got that from Jennifer Heine-Withy. And I literally sat there with the superintendent and his comprehensive sex ed manager and read to them straight off the curriculum, basically the description of intercourse, because that's what's in there. The how to do it, and a couple other things. And I was getting embarrassed, but I thought, no way, man, I'm just pushing, I'm going to barrel ahead with this because this is what's in here. And so I did. And, afterwards I said, so what are your thoughts? I mean, do you feel like this is appropriate for kids to be learning, especially at these ages? And he said, well, I stand by, it's age appropriate, it's medically based or medically accurate and evidence based. And then his curriculum manager, his comprehensive sex ed curriculum manager said, well, I do want to make clear that, we don't review any curriculum for under 4th grade. So she said, technically, we haven't reviewed that, that curriculum for under 4th grade, Flash or any other, So, but now he knows, and what was interesting was they did an adjustment. I didn't actually go look, but I was told they actually did adjust their page. So they made it clear that fourth grade and under, there's nothing approved. But the bottom line is, the letter that I mentioned earlier, the reason I mentioned it is this. Your voices have been heard in Olympia. The House Education Committee, as many of you noted, you came to testify on other bills as well, but the bill, the Comprehensive Sex Ed Bill 5395 had kind of gone into, I'll say, quiet mode, right? There's been enough pushback, thank God, from you guys. There's not a lot of excitement in some respects by certain leaders to move it through the House, thank God. But what's happened is this week I just noticed, and the letter I got was signed by several Democrats, including the Senate sponsor of 5395, Claire Wilson. What?
She was the one that beat me.
Oh, that's right. We need to put Senator Milosha back in so quickly. I forgot about that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're right.
Our district completely changed, when she got elected.
Yeah, and you're seeing how much so. I mean, here you have Mark fighting for what's right, and you have Claire Wilson fighting for the exact opposite values. And the fact that many of you went and mobilized up your community, especially mobilized in Mark's district and went out to the town hall, because I had talked to Sergey and some others, and I said, go. I'm like, and Olga, I said, have your community get out there. You guys have mass number. The sponsor of this bill is going to be there. Go tell her what you think. J.T. Wilcox, our Republican minority leader, and other Republicans got wind of that, and how much pushback they got at that town hall last Saturday, I believe it was. So I'm telling you all this because your voice is making a difference. And the letter that that I got, they sent it to the House Education Committee members saying, we want you to move Senate Bill 5395. We want you to vote on it and get it through the House. So they sent it to the House Education Committee Chair, Representative Santos, and the House Majority Leader, Speaker Chop. I also noticed in my inbox, I'm starting to get emails in support of this bill, right? I mean, it was great for a long time. It was just you guys. It was all opposed. I'm like, oh, it's so great to hear from you. Now they're ginning up, right? I think, they're realizing they're going to need to activate. So just like Mark was saying.
The Stranger, I don't know if anybody know that Seattle paper, The Stranger, probably X-rated pornographic newspaper, the alternative newspaper in Seattle. But they did a big article over the weekend asking everybody to send emails and call your legislators. Yeah. And they attacked Sharon Tomiko Santos, the chair. So the other side is now ginning up. So the last week is real critical right now. That's why we're asking everybody to be voiced right now.
Yep, and to come to Olympia. So for those of you who, I think most of you are probably aware, that's why Mark is here, but we have a rally tomorrow. I'm sorry, not tomorrow. Like, what day is it? Monday, this Monday, April 1st. So no fooling, as we like to say. But this Monday, April 1st, really from 11 to 2. I've been saying 11 to 1, but it's really 11 to 2. At noon, we're going to be meeting in the Columbia Room on the first floor in the Legislative Building in the Capitol, and you'll hear from other legislators. But this is kind of the exclamation point on all this work so that we can have a showing, make sure legislators know, make sure Representative Santos knows, this is not going away. This is something we will continue to fight for. So.
I was going to say, it may go, right now we're here, Columbia Room only holds 300 people. We heard we may have up to 500. Right. So if that goes, we may go to the steps.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Okay, so
awesome.
we will be on the steps then.
outside. Yeah, and that's awesome, and thank you, because I'm just going to say it. Somebody said to me after the 5395 hearing, "Where's the American churches?"
Yes.
You know what? I'm going to start crying. I am so thankful you guys are here. You know what freedom is. You know what it's like to lose freedom. Your parents, your grandparents. Our people don't yet, but they're about to find out if we don't get moving. And so you are helping to lead the charge. And I've been saying over the last year in particular, as I've been on, out trying to run again for this seat, I've said to them, we need to start standing. We need to stand up. And for me and our American churches who've been told, you go sit in the corner, and we have, nicely, I'm like, we have to get up. It's like Martin Luther King, right? That's kind of where I think our folks can they've seen that. They know what that looks like. But you guys are so critical. And so I've gone on and on and on. If you haven't heard me say enough, thank you. Because we are here to represent you. And thank you, Mark, for stepping into this position. Really, this is for such a time as this. And you never know where this will lead. So please know, Mark's given you great information. I'm here locally. So if you have questions about this stuff and how it practically translates afterwards on the ground here in Clark County and in our cities, feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. God bless. God bless. Thank you, Representative Kraft. I think probably one of the top leading voices we have in the House. Thank you very much for what you're doing. Yes, Monday, I was going to talk about that later, but Monday is a big day. As you heard, the other side is finally, don't use both. The other side is finally starting to gin up right now. We've seen more voices raised, and frankly, as Representative Kraft said, it's the Slavic churches. But we need to raise those voices because the other side is starting to fight back. And they're getting very nervous. They didn't expect this. So we're seeing signs of God's presence finally. And maybe the light that you're shining out will start other Christians to also get involved. So again, thank you all. Now I'm going to switch slightly to here before we move to a break. I got a little bit of time here. Really talk about how a bill becomes a law. And this is more the real inside politics of stuff and what I've learned in my 21 years. I told you the most important numbers in Olympia is whoever has the most votes win. In the House, that's 25 votes. In the Senate, that's 25 votes. If you have 25 votes, you can do whatever you want. In the House, it's 50 votes. You have 50 votes, you can do whatever you want. And then you need a governor. So 25 plus 50 plus 1 is how you win. Unfortunately, what happened 2 years ago, basically a year and a half ago, the Republicans, and I was a Republican senator, we lost the Senate. We went from 25 in the majority to 24. The other side took over, and so the Christian voice was all of a sudden excluded. They already controlled the House. We were only one vote short in the House and one in the Senate. So, and then last year, both Republicans in the House and Senate lost. I was one of them. They picked up 4 seats in the Senate and 7 in the House. Now they have huge majorities, and the new class of Democrats are literally all radical. Seattle, I hate to say, Seattle is a completely different political animal than anywhere else in the state. But now Seattle's values, as you heard there in the video, is taking over everywhere. Claire is a 180, Wilson, who replaced me, completely and utterly different from me, or what used to be even normal Democrats in the suburbs. The Democratic Party has now, it used to be moderates and conservatives with the Democratic Party. When I was first elected as a Democrat, there was probably 20 moderates and conservative Democrats in the House and Senate. Now there's maybe 2, 3. There used to be only 1 or 2 socialists. Now there's 20 of them that are kind of the radicals. So that's where the fight is, the socialists versus the liberals, and conservatives and moderates are not even in the discussion anymore. in Olympia. So that's why we've seen these radical bills going forward. It's all because of those numbers. They have majorities. They own the governor, the Senate, and the House, so they can literally do whatever they want unless the people get energized and fight back and put a little fear of God into them. What do I mean by fear of God? Do you know that scripture passage about the widow and the judge? The judge said he said he changed his ruling because he feared what the widow would do and who kept pestering him, lobbying him, arguing with him, demanding, and the judge finally ruled for the widow. Jesus Christ asks us to do the same thing. That's why these town halls, the emails, and these letters are important. They have to feel your presence. And we'll switch the hearts and minds of some of these politicians. Not all of them, let's be frank, not all of them, but we'll get the significant ones. And that's our goal with these bills. Frankly, the votes we lost right now. If the bills came up right now and there's no fear, they'd vote for it all. Now, our goal right now is put the fear so the people that are on the edge say, I'll vote for the bill, but I'm scared those voters will come after me in my district. So I don't want this bill to come up. So that's our plan right now. Put the fear in God in them so they'll whispering to their boss, don't bring it up. I get too much of a backlash. So that's our goal right now. Be that widow. Put some fear in them. And when they hear 1,000 people in their district, 1,000, that's amazing. In my 21 years of office, in my time, I only had one time where over 1,000 people, emailed me on an issue. And that was the gun bill last year. If you remember the gun bills last year. I mean, there were a bunch of moderate people who were going to vote for the gun control, but they reversed them, or they whispering behind the scenes telling their leadership, don't bring it up. I'll get in too much trouble. So the bill was killed that way. So that's our goal on this. So that's another way you can influence legislation. Even though they're against you, they'll be whispering to their bosses, don't let this bill come up. So that's our plan with this bill. Now, how does an individual legislator decide the bill? You see a person, right? I put people decide, or legislators decide based on different principles or rules. For me, and again for Representative Kraft, we have these what we call non-negotiables. I will always be pro-life, no matter what. You can offer me the moon, riches, I will not vote for abortion. Pure and simple. No matter what you say, no matter what threats, I will not change. No matter what is offered to me. I was offered the state auditor. I could have been state auditor today if I changed my position on abortion. That was offered to me. That's why you see politicians out there, Bill Clinton, Al Gore, you name them all, who switched, Ted Kennedy, who were pro-life, but they switched because they wanted to win an election. There are 30 pieces of silver, which I told you about, right? That temptation. I could have been state auditor twice if I changed my position. Was that clear? So there are some positions we don't change. Now, there's people on the other side, you'll never change them. Claire Wilson, she'll never ever change. So, so we shouldn't really be lobbying her very much, but there's a lot of folks who are they don't have that deep-seated principle, and we can work on them, scare them off, put the fear of God in them, or maybe convince them. In my time, there was one person I managed to change from pro-abortion to pro-life. One person in my 20 years. Hearts and minds. So that can happen over long term. So not everybody is set. You can convince somebody. Roger Freeman, were you served with Roger Freeman? He was in my district also. He was a Christian. He switched his position on abortion to run for office. He became pro-abortion because the power said, we'll support you if you run. That's what happens. It wasn't a core principle for him. But then he got stricken with cancer, stage 4 cancer. And when that happens to you, you start really re-examining your decisions in life. And he realized through prayer and love and kindness of his neighbors that what he did by switching his vote on abortion was wrong. So God touched his life, and he admits this. God touched his life, and he switched his position back to pro-life. So God does work. We can change people. We can be that yeast, that leaven for our society, for people, that light. Bring people, that sheep that's wandered off, we can bring them back. But if we're not doing that, nothing happens. So there's principles, deep principles that's really, really hard to change. The other one is a lot of people take advice from their political party, right? I was a Democrat for the Times, and it was okay. You know, they allowed pro-life people to be there. But then the political parties became really, really tough. Nope, you got to be pro-choice. You got to be for a whole the LGBTQ culture. If you don't, we're not going to give you money. So the parties have a lot of influence on elected officials. That's why when you vote for folks, it's good to kind of know if, are they ones that will be wishy-washy, switch? The parties have a lot of influence. And unfortunately right now, if you're a Democrat and pro-life or pro-family in marriage, you're going to get $0. It is virtually impossible. We've lost the Democratic Party. So I told you right now, I don't want to lose the Republican Party. They're working on the Republican Party. I read an article this morning about a Republican Party operative trying to change the GOP's position on life and marriage. They're working on it. Okay, parties have a lot of influence. And if the party flips like it is in England, right now, if you're a faithful Christian, you can't run for office in any party. They won't let you. I don't want this happening in America. So the parties help decide the views of the legislators, right? And the group who controls the party controls a lot of the politicians. So the parties have a lot of influence. Down in Olympia, as Representative Kraft said, the speaker decides a lot of things. Right now, Sharon Tomiko Santos is under a lot of pressure. She doesn't want the bill go through right now. But the speaker could utilize say, no, I want you to push that bill out or you're fired. So the speaker has a lot of power to overrule individual legislators on different issues. And she may be overruled or told to do that. As a chair, I was told to do X and Y things, and by the party, by the speaker. And I could talk you the whole story, and the speaker has a lot of power. In the Senate, it's a little bit easier. It's hard for the leadership to tell you what to do. You know, senators have a lot more power than the average state representative. So senators could push back and be their own person, independent.
I still do too, by the way. I don't let leadership tell me what to do.
Oh, I'm talking about the speaker.
Yeah, either way, but that's typical. Yeah.
Right.
You're right.
Yeah. The speakers have a lot of power to twist arms. Yeah.
No, you're fine. I just needed to grab a couple things.
Oh, yeah, good. How else do you influence legislators? What makes them change their mind? The next election. If you tell elected officials, this is a deal breaker for our support, we're going to work against you next election, they start noticing you. That influences folks, especially on marginal issues, you know, or they may be whispering to their colleagues, like I said before, I don't want this bill to come up because I'm going to get the entire Slavic community upset with me. I'm going to get all Christians upset with me. I'm going to get this group upset with me. That happens a lot. But that doesn't happen unless people hear that people are upset, and they're going to remember this come election time. Money talks. I mean, that should be an obvious thing, but I'll say it anyway. People with money have no influence for politicians. When Bill Gates or this rich organization speaks, people do listen, and it does have power to influence more than the average folk. Being a friend. How many people here know your, except for Representative Kraft, how many people here know all three of their legislators? Okay, 2. 3. People tend to, especially on the easy issues, if they know you and you're a friend, they'll really listen to and take your advice and counsel. So by getting to know your legislator, you know, that does help. Like I said, it doesn't really help on the really hard issues, but in other issues it could. It could make a difference. So having that ongoing relationship or being able to communicate with your legislator does have an influence. And those emails I talk about, the phone calls, remember, it's power being persistent like that widow or numbers. You know, it's everything, I remember, comes back to the numbers. If you have 1,000 people sending an email, they're going to notice that. That's a once-in-a-decade lifetime when you get 1,000 emails. Generally, it's under 50. So we made them notice. Unfortunately, they have 12 ugly bills. It's hard to generate everybody for all of them. So when it was only 1 or 2 ugly bills, you can concentrate on all of them. Right now, like I said, we're fighting about 10 bad bills, and they've gone crazy on them. So it's hard to generate. You know, FPIW and the other organizations are doing that, but we got to build we got to up our game also, because like I said, they've gone crazy. And then your argument. I have a lot of folks tell me, well, if I just sit down with Representative Kraft or Representative Malosha, I'll convince them. The arguments do work on some folks, but it works more with people, frankly. But most of the politicians down there, you know, for the controversial, they're already decided. So arguing or debating or educating folks isn't as effective as some of the other things. On a lot of the easier issues, yes, that does work. Okay. Oh, time for questions here right now. Any questions right now? We've covered a lot since our last thing. Do you want to answer questions?
So the question is this: it seems like a lot of what we're doing is on the defensive end. We're reactive.
Yes.
You know, let's oppose this, oppose this. Could you mention maybe something that we're doing to be proactive? Say, for example, I know in California there's a certain bill that passed earlier that allows parents to remove their kids from the public school system and get a certain credit with the homeschooling. Like, what, if anything, what are we doing to be proactive in protecting families and such?
Well, it's a great question. I can share with you a couple of things. And, sorry. Thank you. I know, I'm told I'm quiet. I'm like, believe me, there are times I'm not quiet, but I guess probably overall. So there are some things that have been done, you know, to be proactive. I'll just tell you one of the things that I did that I honestly felt like the Lord specifically told me to do this session, and our leadership, I'm sure just went, oh. But the Lord told me to drop a bill or introduce a bill to provide access again, just specifically saying public schools must provide access to the Bible, right? And the writer of our policy staff, actually this was OPR staff or bipartisan staff, the Lord put it on my heart who to talk to, and he really, I'm sure he's a faith-based person of some sort. Anyway, he drafted it in such a way, I said, let's put the Constitution in there, and he put in the Washington State Constitution and said, foundational texts must be made accessible, including the Bible, U.S. Constitution, Washington State Constitution. Now, you probably haven't read about that in the news, have you? Well, I dropped it late in the session, but I'll just tell you, there are a lot of bills like that will get introduced. Many of you know Representative Matt Shea. So from a legislative standpoint, we are also trying to make some of those proactive moves. The reality is, as Senator Malosha mentioned, we're in such a minority right now on the Republican side in the House and Senate. Those bills they might get assigned to a committee, but they'll never even be scheduled to be heard. But really, I mean, and I'll turn it over here for your thoughts too, but right now, given the majorities that we have, what you are doing, I know it doesn't feel like enough sometimes because we're not getting the bills passed for like credit, right? I will tell you this comprehensive sex ed bill, if it passes this year or whenever it does, and probably even before that, introducing a credit so that home school or just voucher type program, right? If you're not putting your child in public education, you will get a credit, a tax credit. So Representative Shea may have even introduced something. He usually introduces a stack like this, those type of bills. But at any rate, so those are some things we can do. But your voice right now is the proactive tool that works. And getting elected, right? Running for office, getting elected, school boards. I know Olga and some others have put that out. those are really some of the right now next step practical things you can do and start getting into office. So,
Well, to be very honest, we're going to get maybe 0.5%. The other side is going to get 99.5%. It's virtually impossible to do it. I used to be a powerful, in a Democratic Party, committee chair, and I was fired from 2 different committees. If you're looking for a pro-family, pro-life, pro-religious freedom agenda, it's virtually impossible in our state. I can't tell you how radical things have moved in just the last 5 years, let alone 10 years. I started seeing it get real bad when President Obama got elected, as I mentioned, and now they've fallen off the cliff. And so we're the Policy Institute, so we have lots of positive bills that I have ready to introduce, but they're all going nowhere unless we change what number? 25 plus 50 plus 1. If we have a pro-family, 25 votes in the Senate, in the House we have 50 votes and 1 governor, then you'll see something really, really good. But now it is virtually and utterly impossible. And as I said before, if we still allow Christians to go from where we are now at roughly 50% down to 40%, it'll be doubly impossible, it'll be triply. So we got to reverse that. So maybe that's give you something to hope for, to work for the future. But right now they're trying to make it worse and uglier for us literally every year, and it's going to get worse.
can I jump in on that real quick? Because something you said actually, Mark, made me think about this. You know, we talked about getting involved in the local Republican Party earlier. That is absolutely something you can do today. I literally came over from a Clark County Republican Party meeting, and we have a very conservative chairman right now, Earl Bowerman. And so a lot of times whoever's leading even the local parties, even on your Republican side, sometimes determines how, kind of conservative or maybe more moderate you have. But the bottom line is that's something you can do today, and you can get involved. There's a Lincoln Day dinner coming up. I think it's May 18th. I would, certainly suggest you attend. You can visit the Clark County Republican Party website. You can come volunteer to get involved in that fundraiser, start getting around the party, get it, run for precinct committee officer, which is your grassroots level. First thing you can really do to be a representative for your local neighbors in what's called a precinct, a very small area of about 1,000 homes. Or you could be appointed. So if nobody's currently sitting as a PCO in your precinct, and this is, the Republican Party can help you determine that or not, but you could maybe be appointed. So your legislative district, so the district I represent, has a chair at the Republican Party level, and if your precinct does not have a precinct committee officer and you say, I'd like to do it, you attend 4 quarterly meetings a year, typically another 4 quarterly meetings a year for the legislative district you represent level as a PCO. You can do this, and it's, there's more to it, as far as, active than that. Once you get in that position, there are more things you can do. But even that starting point, right, that's how I got involved. I got involved with the party. And as you get more involved and you start learning and getting to know people in our community at that level, a lot of opportunities. And school board really is the easiest, besides the precinct committee officer, because that's pretty much a very low, no-cost deal. School board is an excellent place. Many of you are parents, grandparents. You qualify to sit on a school board. You can do this, and it doesn't take a lot of money and effort to get involved. And so, anyway, those are some other thoughts. And really, here's the thing. We serve, some of you have heard me say this, we serve God, the God of Jesus Christ, Abraham, Isaac. He's got all the power. More of us, I do believe there are more of us than them. And as Mark said, there are some realities that are within Seattle and right now in Olympia. But we have the power to change that. We just have to stand up, and you guys are. We need more of us to stand up, and we'll do that. As we lead, as you lead that fight and get involved, we can stand up, and together there are more of us than them. And that's why Trump's in the White House. And the same thing is here in Washington. We have a God on our side who is the victor.
I've never been involved in politics, never been to a rally, However, I plan to show up on Monday. Any pointers for those of us who are just kind of novices in terms of politics? Other than just being present, I mean, what do we do?
Well, the purpose for Monday is to, because the other side is going to come out on Tuesday, right? They're going to have their huge rally on Tuesday, and the cutoff is on Wednesday. So the purpose why we want everybody to come out there is one last big, huge presence out there. You're going to hear probably you and I are going to speak, and you'll hear some other politicians speak, and then hopefully, you know, everybody will notice the thousands of people down there, and it'll shock them. Remember, make people nervous, put the fear into them. And then you go over to see your legislature, and you give them a note so they know you're there. You probably won't get to talk to anybody, but everybody will know you're there. And that's the effect. You know, we want to blanket the Capitol, because they're going to do it the next day. And so that's the purpose. Lastly, we're hoping that people will, remember I told you this is a long-term fight, stay engaged. And it's not just one day that makes a difference. So we're hoping you get the bug, the spirit, the grace to continue this fight. But you will learn stuff there, and you'll learn you're not alone. That's for me was the best thing. I learned I'm not alone, you know. There's other folks, good folks, who are also fighting this in our community. And we may lose today. The odds are against us, let's be honest. But in the long run, we are going to win. So that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I would just add, you know, if you want to bring a poster, I know some of you brought posters, right? So no on SB 5395, you know, those kind of things. You know, I don't know, Olga, you know, some of the people that are leading. Yep. So there are messages, and I think FBIW made some great stickers. You guys, the green scarves, that would be another thing. If you have, I don't know, whatever color you want to go with, if it's the green, okay. So there were some bright green scarves that were made, and there was a sticker that was great that said, "Protect all children." I wore my little scarf the other day, just run across. I didn't have anything warm, so there I was. But truly, when people see you all wearing green and you're there in mass force like that, they notice. Legislators will be walking from a building to the next. They may not even know there's a group on campus, but they'll see you and they'll go, "Who are you with?" And then even if they don't ask you, they will ask when they get back and go, "Who's that group out there? Why are they here?" And then they know.
And like I said, we also hope you learn more about what are the different bills. It takes a long time to learn all the different bills and nuances. There's another bill down there. It's thankfully already dead. But there's literally a movement right now out there. This bill was introduced last year, and they made it a little bit worse this year, but it died both years, where runaway kids don't have to go back to their homes. The government will set them up. So they're actually encouraging kids to go pick their parents. They don't like their parents? We'll give you a better set. All on the government's dime, you know, and that's the world we're coming to. And frankly, like I said, unless we energize the public, you know, like I said, it was one bad bill 4 years ago, and last year there was 5 bad bills. This year there's 12 bad bills. The way they're going, the trend line, they're going to be 25 bad bills next year. So we got to stop them because they're not going away. They're doubling down in the ugliness of what they're doing.
Yeah, a hopeful note, because, I mean, these are some, I'll tell you, yesterday I had the worst day in Olympia I have literally ever had. I was on the verge of tears. I mean, for a various set of reasons. We were also voting on the operating budget, so that in itself will give you enough to cry about, because it's ridiculous money they're spending. It's your money they're spending. But now where was I going with this? I guess, yeah, on a hopeful note, you know, they are doing such egregious things, as Mark has mentioned, and on so many levels, right? Gun rights, freedoms of all sorts, take away your kids. The reality is, I honestly believe that what they think is normal to them and the Seattle values, it's not. And I even think their own base, just like Mark said, you know, there are still Democrats that aren't as left and liberal as, you know, they think, and as many of them now are. So I actually think we're going to see a backlash. I really think in 2020 we are going to pick up some seats. I don't know how many, but as we fight and we get more to stand up on our side, and as they get more radical, you know, more radical, I think like Trump, nobody expected him to be there. And, you know, it was a miracle. It's an opportunity. The other thing I was going to mention really quick, have any of you heard, I just heard about this morning, David Horowitz has a book out now, Dark Agenda. I don't know how many of you have heard of that. It will probably not be surprising to you all, but he's a Jewish gentleman, not super conservative necessarily or anything like that. I mean, they say he's conservative, I guess, but just stunning to me. He just kind of hits, I mean, just the bullet points I saw in the book talked about how the agenda of the left, really, it's a communist agenda, and the taking away of kids. You know, I just read another thing that, again, I'll end on this piece because it just shows you how left and off the charts they're getting is waking up other Democrats. I read an article yesterday about a gay lesbian woman who said her daughter, you know, went to school basically, came and had come home and, you know, said, nope, I'm now a boy, and, you know, was given hormones and, you know, things start changing them. The parent wasn't notified, and more of these things are happening. And this gay lesbian mom said, my party is not listening to me. My own party will not let me speak up that this is wrong, that they are deciding what my children can and can't do and steering my children in directions I don't want her going. How about that? So keep up the fight. We will get there.
And like I said, this is a 3,000-year-old fight, folks, right? Ever since Sodom and Gomorrah, that's where we've been fighting this. Noah, history is all about this. Hitler had his youth camps. Stalin did his gulags. They're coming after and indoctrinating your kids. Churches and Christians are the enemy. They have to destroy us to win. I mean, this fight is not new. The question is, we just got to wake up from our slumber. And right now, it looks like the Slavic community has woken up. Help me wake up the rest of the state. Yeah. Help me wake up the other groups, the other family, parents. I mean, whatever ideology. I mean, it's wrong at any level, but they've drunk that Kool-Aid, and the papers are covering them up. Are covering up mistakes. So we have to do other means to communicate with each other. And like I said, if Martin Luther King could do it in the Deep South 50 years ago, we can do it because we got God on our sides and he'll be with us every step of the way.
Amen.
Amen. Now let's take a little break. Yeah.
Before the break,
okay.
Can I say something?
Oh, sure.
Hello, everybody. I'm so thankful to our God that we have this special event today. I thought it would be a whole church filled with the people, but that's okay. The main thing, we have Mark, Vicki, and everybody else who's in this room, and God with us. When I heard at first, when I went to that event in February, we had a few people, Russians, from different churches, and we realized that we will not be able to turn everything because it's too late and not many people. But God moved the hearts of all of you. We came to this country for better. I think your parents had everything in Russia. I had so many good things, but my dream was for my kids. I want them to be in Christian school, in Christian college, and be leaders. And you know, to see what's going on now in America, I can't say anything good, what I told before. I'm not ashamed to say that because this is my country now. I brought my kids here. That's their land now. And because of me, they are here. God allows me to bring them here, but not to destroy them. We are close to heaven. You know, I'm 60. Very soon I will be there. But what my kids and grandkids will earn or work with in here, that's our time to get up, stand up. And when I met those special people, Kenny Smith, Randall, I'm sorry if I will not name your names, but you know I know you, and I'm so thankful for all of you. You are heroes here, Americans. It's not many Americans like you are. You are putting yourself on the front of enemies. You know, it's so many of our Slavic people here. We're so Christian. I came from underground church, and all of you know what that means. My father was in prison, my uncles, grandfather, and many of you are probably. Where are we at right now? We have a power with these leaders to win. Let's stand up, stand in prayers, in fasting time. You know, Esther, she was there, a queen. You know, and when she heard, she decided, because of her uncle, direct her. If you will not stand up, somebody else will come. But where you will be. That's the voice God called me. When first time I was driving back home, I was saying to Kenny, what the purpose? I drove, I spent all this day there. What the point of that? And by the next morning, I was in tears, crying and saying, Lord, if that would not be my children, grandchildren, I can just draw away. But because of my generation, I have to get up. That's why Lord calling us all together. I'm so thankful for the special families who are working with God. Let's get together. Thank you. And it's not the end.
15-minute break, right? So come back in 15 minutes, and then we have another 45 minutes or an hour after that.
Yes.
Good, good.
Mark, I did bring my PowerPoint, so if you want me to do that, it's keyed up there.
How long will it take? Oh, yeah. Okay, good, yeah, good. That'd be perfect.
I didn't even bring them. I made the notes, but I cannot look at them.
Okay, good. Yeah. Good. Oh, absolutely, yeah. Olga came down to Federal Way and helping out. What? Good. Okay, we're going to be running out of time here. So, darn. Okay, so come on up. Coming up. Got Leanne going to talk to you more the micro level, what you can do really on the floor, and then talk for about, say, we're supposed to end at 1 o'clock. So we're supposed to end at 1 o'clock, right? Yeah, so, and then I'll talk for 5 minutes. Okay. We had a long break.
Okay, my name is, let's see, I need the, this the one?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. My name's Leanna Ben, and I'm from Spokane. And I'm here to talk about two different kinds of programs. So number one, I want to talk about something, and you're welcome to go out and sign up for it, and we'll send you the copy. I have something called Inform 3. And sometimes we don't know how to talk to a legislator, but we do know how to talk to our friends. And so this is to take one to your pastor who's willing to pray for the issues of the day. And then you hand out another copy to 2 other friends. Now, you're not doing anything confrontive. You're just handing them this information. So in this packet, we have quotes from 3 of the 6 approved curricula. And when I read these over the airways, the radio announcer cringed. And when I handed them to pastors, they're going really, and their eyes bug out. And so it helps them see these are the real quotes, direct quotes from things. And then in that packet also is, how is Planned Parenthood defeating us? I've been involved in this since 1979. And I've been working on alternative programs that teach moral development and not the kind of sex education that's happening. And so Planned Parenthood has put us down. It has made it so that no matter how many parents show up, I mean, it is a numbers game, but it isn't just numbers. And so what's happened is that many of the tactics that we could use get stopped by Planned Parenthood, and they know how to stop us. And so many of the pages in here talk about what is Planned Parenthood going to do, what's their next step, so we know their strategies. Because we can plan all kinds of things, but if they have something to block it, we need to do something different. And lastly in this packet is, and we'll send this to you, are some of the bills and who sponsored them and actual copies of the bill and the problem with the bill. So that's available. And this plan is one that if you started it in your church and you just went to the prayer partners, you would have power in numbers. And when a new bill comes out, or you notice something on FPIW and you go, this is against our family, this is against our values, you could talk to your 3 people that you gave your Inform 3 to. And you don't have to spend an hour doing a whole bunch of stuff. You have 3 emails to send at one time. And if you send too many emails, it'll go in the garbage, I mean the electronic garbage. So you send 3 out. And there can even be some standard ones that you go out. So somebody finds out. So if you're on an email list out there, we can send you some of the ones that we have, and you can write the same letter. And I know that it's better to have your own letter, but sometimes you don't have time to get the kids off to school and get the house cleaned and get to work. And you just don't have the time. And so this Inform 3 helps you get the prayer piece going. And I know that we can talk about numbers, but I hold true that greater is he that is within me than he that is in the world. And if you believe that statement, prayer is the tool. And we can do all kinds of legislative things, and we should, but if we're praying, God is going to open up doors. God is going to be the one that changes hearts and minds. And you can be persuasive, and you might turn a few heads, but God will open the doors. We have right now, this era reminds me of the early 80s when places like Focus on the Family started and several of the Family Research Council started. There is a move in the spirit right now that is happening, and you can be a part of it within your own school district, within your own church. And you can make the Holy Spirit be so much a part of who you are and how you look at politics that it will flow over you, and other people will know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it's already started, but it can be expanded. And I think having a prayer strategy, I mean, Jesus was extremely strategic. And if you read through the Gospels, you realize that he acted different in different cities and with different healings. And he was strategic. We need to be strategic about who we pray. No, don't just say, well, everybody pray for this. No, you give something to them that is the three people that they know exactly what to pray for. They need to understand what's in this, and they're not going to have time to do a ton of reading or a ton of research, so it's here. And anybody that signs up, we'll keep giving you the things that are there. One of the things that we have is research, and I'm going to switch from being a mom that's a believer to talking about I have a federal grant to serve all of Washington State. And since I wrote the grant knowing that there's not a chance that a sexual risk avoidance, an abstinence, a SANE program will make it through the Superintendent of Public Instruction's approval process. There's no chance. So what do we do? He says he's living water. So are we living water too? We're filled with living water, which means we need to go around and through in different channels. So what Teen-Aid developed under the federal grant is we developed a program. This program we call the alternative. So you can take your kids out of the sex education program and yet still have them have information. It's developed for 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, and the teacher is you as the parent. And we know from statistics, actual science-based, not the fake stuff, the actual science-based, that when parents and teens talk, they take less risks. And so building that relationship is probably the best use of your time. And so you build it over the topic of risk. And we know that that works, and we know that we can provide the tools. So my professional job is a tool maker. I've put together 13 curricula. They have been evaluated by the federal government for effectiveness, not just when they say, are they evidence-based, you know what that means? It does not mean that they had good evidence. It means that they had a pre-test and a post-test. It does not mean that it showed that it works. So evidence-based doesn't mean anything, but what I'm telling you is we know that ours actually worked, and we changed things. And when parents are involved, it changes even more because your children want to hear from you. They want to be connected. They want to work alongside you. And so let me share briefly, and I'll go through these slides really quickly, but you can teach your own children. And I'll talk at the end about 2 different ways that you can do that. Again, there's no money involved, except if you finish the program, I'll pay you $20. It can't be a bad deal, right? Okay, so on the teenaid.com website, you can look at this PowerPoint slideshow, and it will tell you how the project works and what your responsibilities are as the parent. Second, this starts out with who am I? And we're in an identity crisis, and so we want kids to look at who they are, not based on how they're having sex. My husband is dead. Therefore, I'm not having sex. That means I'm a non-person based on what we're teaching in school. I'm not a non-person. I do all kinds of things. I'm involved in all kinds of places. I do all kinds of things, and I'm real. You come and you can pinch me even, and I'm real. But I don't have sex. And that's what our children are learning. And our children shouldn't be having sex, but they're telling them that they have to. So we talk about who am I? How do I address myself? this is our federal government that allows us to do this. This is a federal grant. Washington State was supposed to apply for it. Instead, they're suing the Trump administration because we want to teach sexual risk avoidance, like don't get involved in risks. And so they're suing, so they didn't apply for the money. So the administration said, hey, anybody that's a nonprofit in Washington State can apply for the money. We did, and we got it. And if you wanted to sit down with me, I would tell you how amazing it is. I mean, one of the amazing things, not only that we got it when Washington State has been so anti-teenage for over 35 years, but they told us to add $30,000 to our budget. And that doesn't happen. That's amazing all by itself. So it says we're not to normalize non-marital sex. I'm going to say that one more time. We're not to normalize non-marital sex. Virtually every program that is approved by our OSPI, Superintendent of Instruction, normalizes out-of-wedlock sex. So every program, and I don't know which pair of glasses I should put on, but every program covers these learning objectives. They cover all the things that you'd need to know to teach the class if you want it. But we also have a program, and we have used all of this material in previous grants to show effectiveness. But one of the main effective things is to get parents and teens to talk. So we have a family conversation piece. This is one of the slides. We talk about, how to build friendship, how to build relationships, practical things that your teenager wants to know how to do. We talk about how do you love family members? How do you love people from the friendship to family members? And then we talk about other kinds of things. This is the back side. Actually, on our website, if you were to take our program, you log in and you put in a username and password that we give you, and the parent gets to see pages that look like this, and the kids get to see pages where they have to click and have fun and music and go through some information. And then the parents are supposed to talk to their kids. They have all this information. And they have the family piece, and I'm skipping over that quickly. This is what the youth will have. And the parents will have something that looks like this, and they'll have a script to talk to their young people so that they can transmit their values, what their belief system is on how to set boundaries. One of the other skills that we teach is paraphrasing. We do all different kinds of communication skills, refusal skills, problem-solving skills, paraphrasing. This is a skill-based program, and many of us haven't really, as parents, looked at how do we use the skills that we learned in the workplace within our own families. And so we looked at some good skills. Yes, we teach reproductive anatomy, and the doctor that wrote the material is a retired OBGYN, and then we submitted all of our information to 2 other OBGYNs in Spokane. So they looked at all our footnotes, they looked at all the things that are there. And by the way, most of the curricula that are approved have virtually no footnotes in them. And so they're supposed to be accurate, they are opinion. And what we did is we have several hundred footnotes in our curriculum that are from medical journals and research-based. We teach fetal development because, by the way, sex is about having babies, and we've unlinked that so much that kids don't understand that. But we want them to see how amazing they were made, how amazing they are, and what valuable people they are. And that's part of what our fetal development does. We also teach a decision-making model. And it's a decision-making model that's not what you feel like. It's not whatever feels good, do it. It's an actual model using facts and figures, not feelings. And so we have them describe the problem, look at all the options, crazy ones even. And then we go back and we say, okay, is this legal? If it's not, if that option's not legal, it's against the law, it's off the table. They can't use it anymore. It can't be conflict. Kids will say, well, I've got so many choices and I don't know. Well, no, it becomes really simple, because if it's not legal, it's not possible. And if it's not moral, meaning what your family values are, if it's not part of your religious family, it's off the table. If it's not ethical, if it's not fair to everybody that's involved, it's off the table. If it doesn't help you reach your goals, if it isn't in line with the authority in charge, and if it doesn't build relationships, by the time you get to there, every option that's left is safe. It becomes just a choice between red or blue, pink or green. And then we have them decide. But instead of just having them decide, we have them evaluate. Was it a good decision? And we teach them goal setting because they need to know, does it help me meet my goals? So we use SMART goals, which is a pretty standard goal setting process. And then we have a process by which they get there. How many of us have said, I have a goal, and it never happened? It didn't happen because we didn't know how to start. And so this is a process that corporate uses. And we've put it so that teenagers can actually use this process of how to get to their goal. One of the things that we know that helps kids not take sexual risks is to have goals and to achieve them. So we want to give them the skill that's going to do the trick. We also talk about what are your talents? What are your career aspirations? Where are you going in life? And once you're there, what are you going to do with your budget? We have almost no personal finances taught in public schools. They have no idea of what are budgeting principles. And the first thing they get is a credit card and in debt, and then somebody else is in charge of them. And so we want young people to understand those budgeting principles, and we have them make a budget. We also talk about peer pressure. Most peer pressure does not come from peers. That's a good way for adults to push off the problem onto peers, onto kids. In fact, think about this. I work in a recovery program where people are coming out of jail and they're coming in from drug treatment programs and off the street. And they'll talk about, well, I got into it by peer pressure. Well, guess what they'll tell you also is that when they were 14, somebody sold them drugs. It was a 16-year-old, not a 14-year-old. They don't consider themselves peers. And the 14-year-old got the drugs to sell from a 20-year-old, and the 20-year-old was just answering what he needed to do to a 35-year-old, and the 35-year-old made a little bit of money, but the real money was the 65-year-old that was running the whole shamola. Okay, so who was putting the pressure on those 14-year-olds? It really wasn't 14-year-olds. So we have kids understand where's pressure coming from, who profits, and we start asking solid questions. We do talk about contraceptive failure, but we don't talk about it in relationship to other contraceptives. What we do is we say, in perfect use, this contraceptive does this. In use, actual use with real people, it has this failure rate. If you notice, the failure rate for teenagers is so much higher than it is for other people on the same method. They're not good contraceptive users, and so we prepare parents with additional information, background information, so that they can understand it. And we don't hand that to the students. We let the parent We actually mail it in an envelope to the parents, and the parents can decide if they want to teach contraception or not. We talk about support enforcement. Some of our homeless issue revolves around support enforcement. Many of the young men who don't participate with their children and become the fathers that they want to be, once they become separated because they had the child out of wedlock, they end up having support enforcement, and it causes them to be angry and not support their children. And so we talk about it from a financial aspect. The kids really, they looked at their budget. Now we look at their budget with support enforcement involved. We talk about all the sexually transmitted diseases, and you see the little bug guy over on the side. That's as graphic as you're going to get. We're not going to show, crazy penises that look like they're going to explode, which a lot of programs do, because if young people wait until their body parts look like that, they aren't going to recover. And it's coeducation, and they're going to think that sexuality is bad. Sexuality is good. It's a gift from God, and we need to be thankful for it, and we need to go get something taken care of immediately. So we give a lot more concrete information about them. We also have a heart for prevention, and our prevention is not just young people having to prevent their own problems. We believe that we need to give the skills, and we have many things that are supposed to be covered, and most of the curricula that's approved by OSPI does not cover the very things that they say that they have to cover. So more changes are going to come from OSPI for your curriculum, and they're not going to be good. And so we've covered all of those things, and we do it from a perspective of what do teenagers do and what do parents do to support their kids. It's a unique way of looking at it, but it's a family approach. We also teach them how to report. And we know from all of the sex scandals that we've had in the last 2 years that reporting goes on, but we also need to prevent people from being involved in that. We talk about date and acquaintance rape and how to take care of that. We talk about human trafficking. We talk about pornography. That's a really important issue. I'll just quickly, when I was a teenager and people talked about pornography, it was a woman in a swimming suit smiling next to a shiny Chevy. Today it's different. And there's more pornography that goes on than all the things that go on Amazon, Google, YouTube, and Facebook. There's more actual hub porn traffic than all of those put together every single day. Our young people are drenched in pornography, and the school is saying it's okay. Now, we don't want to leave them in the negative, even though we've done prevention on each one. There's a success sequence, and we want our young people to look at this sequence and finish school. We want them to look at how do they get goals and how do they avoid some of these things. How do they actually become married and have full-time jobs? What do we do to make that sequence, instead of putting sex over here as some kind of horrible thing, how do we make it so that their sexuality is interspersed with their life, and it doesn't take over their life? Most of us know, if we've been married for any length of time, we spend more time changing the dishwasher than having sex. So let's get it in perspective. And then we talk about the advantages of abstinence. And how do we get there again? Some of our kids have been involved in date and acquaintance rape. They've been involved in molestation. They need to know how to get out of that. And so that's what we do. Now, this program is an online digital program. So we send the program out to the parents. Actually, we give them a username and password. When they get to a certain level, we send them the chapter to go through, and the student gets it, the parent gets it. At the end of the chapter, they go online and put in their data. So we're not going to keep the data in a way that's negative. The college outside evaluator, Whitworth College, or university, knows what the answers are that kids have. We keep track of the people, so they never get connected. And the federal government never gets either the data or anything from the college or our names, your names. What happens is they get a summary. And so we protect the data. And there's 2 ways of doing this program. And that may be difficult to understand, so I can answer a few more questions and you can call me, and my information's out on the table, and if you sign up with your email, I'll be glad to answer them. So there's 2 ways. One, if you want your child to opt out of the public school program completely, we can provide a health curricula piece that's 0.5 credits through an accredited school in Washington State, Northwest Academy, and they can take 75 hours of health education that covers first aid and how to suture a thing, how to wrap up a bandage, all those things, plus our sexuality piece. Option number 2 is you can do this at home with your kids on Saturday. You can do it at 10 o'clock at night, and all of it will be there, and you'll have all that information, and you get to be the teacher. You get to transmit the values that you want. And when you finish that, we pay you $20 because we want you to finish. And the third option is if you have a group of young people, and not just 1 or 2, but you have a group of young people, some people from our staff, Teen Aid, will come down here and we'll do a presentation that would be a Friday night and all day Saturday, and have the kids understand all of these concepts that we have, and we would do that for you as well.
Yep. Let me tell you, is this on? Can you hear me? Yes. Leanna is one of the smartest people I know on this subject. She's the one I call when I find out what's going on. Get this piece of paper. Any questions, call her. She knows all the details. Like I said, I'm good at the strategic stuff. She's the one here right now knowing how we can fix things in the classroom. And if we ever get power or influence, we're going to try to pass a bill that promotes this. This is what we need. We're not going to get it through OSPI. And maybe even next year, FPIW may be recommending all parents pull their children out and go to something like that. That is ultimately our last ditch thing we do, or send all our kids to private school. But right now, this is literally the best we have in our state, the only one that I would recommend we send children to. But unfortunately, that's our state, and that's what we got change. Do you want to add anything else?
There's no limit of how,
Yeah.
there's no limit of how many people can be parents and do this. There's no limit of how many kids we can serve in the presentation that you might put together here. And you guys have such great food. You know, kids will love you. But there is a limit of how many credits we have, because that's costly and our budget can be limited. And so, I mean, get on board. And here's, this is my bottom line.
Sure.
Is the federal government said, wow, what a unique idea you have, but nobody will come because parents don't care. And it just causes me heartburn, because parents do care, they do love their kids, they do want to have tools, they do want to participate. But if we don't show that they participate, we will lose our grant in 2 years. If we show that parents care, we will probably get another grant, and then we can do 7th and 8th grade. And if we got another one, we could probably get 6th and 5th grade. And that's really what we need to do, is have that option all the way through. But we can't do it unless parents participate with their kids.
So you may be seeing an email from us very soon asking everybody on our list, you're going to join our list, right? Everybody on our list to join this program, because we got to keep this alive. We have to tell OSPI, the governor, and the legislature that it's unacceptable how our children are being taught. This is what we want our children being taught. But right now, the other side's gambling on parents don't care about their children.
I'm not sure, maybe I misunderstood something. So this year, whoever signs up for this program is only for 9th graders?
It's for 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. So it's not for 7th, and it's not for everybody, because we don't have enough material for everybody approved yet. We don't have that done. But yeah, so we just need certain grade levels, unfortunately, that limits who can participate. But if you're praying for it and you're doing the prayer walk and the Inform 3, you're going to find a lot more people that, hey, they would like to participate.
Is there an alternative for elementary children?
There
Because
is
I know
not.
my child's class, they start in the 4th grade.
Okay, the alternative is this: opt your children out. And when you write the letter, you say, my children are not to be presented sexuality information,
Right.
and my attorney is being carbon copied. And they want to try to make you have to go in and sit for an hour. No, you have parents' rights. Their children belong to you. That HIV thing is not important. And if they don't opt your children out when you want them to, you have a lawsuit. The other thing that I want FPIW to do next year,
I'm listening.
I got information. I want schools to be required to allow the parents to choose their alternative when they opt their children out.
Yeah.
And that's a little ask, but that means we can provide all kinds of programs for our kids, and the school can't do anything about it.
But that needs a bill.
Needs a bill.
Yeah,
Yes, it
no.
does.
Yeah,
Needs
we'll
a bill.
write this in the interim.
All right, well, I know our time is up,
Yes.
so thank you.
Give her a hand. Like I said, she's the expert that we have, that we rely on. And, okay, we're a little bit late. There's some stuff I didn't get to, but the bottom line is the only way you get the society that you desire, a Christ-filled society, if you engage and you act. Yep. Go ahead, come on down, Randall. You were going to say something, that's right. One last little plug. Thank you.
Well, guess what? We got a law firm who's willing to go to bat for us. But believe it or not, Leanna and I I still remember that afternoon, Leanna. We said, what do we do? What do we do? We need help. We don't know what to do. And we asked our Heavenly Father, can you help us? Less than a half hour later, an attorney from the Pacific Justice Institute called us out of the clear blue sky. The first words out of his mouth were, what can we do to help you? Amazing, amazing answer to prayer. Now, Pacific Justice Institute is a law firm based originally in California, but God spoke to their hearts and said, you need to expand your team. Parents in Oregon and Washington are going to need help. So we actually have an attorney assigned specifically here for us. His name is Jorge Ramos. He wrote a memo, and I have to apologize a little bit for reading off a memo, but he said, Randall, make sure that everybody here knows what's on this. It's a memorandum, a legal memorandum, okay? This is what he said. This memorandum is provided to inform you and advise you on different strategies that the Pacific Justice Institute can assist with addressing concerns in Washington State sexual education curricula. The memorandum covers 3 strategies to effectuate change. Number 1, legislative change. Number 2, activity at the local school board district level, and or number 3, litigation. Under number 1, legislative, they said before a policy change takes place, they'll offer an analysis of the makeup of the state legislature to do that and to determine if there are enough votes present to successfully pass a bill. If so, this is attorney himself talking, saying, I, PJI, can help draft that proposed legislature and even testify before the state and local governments. They want to get involved. They want to help us out. They know the law. That's their life. Number 2, local school board. Parent activism at the local district level provides the most effective method of change. PJI is willing, ready, and able to assist parents in their endeavor. PJI has printed its own booklet titled Public Education, Religious Rights and Values in Washington Schools.
And that's out in front.
That was out front on that table in the center. I urge you to take a look at that. They get 13 topic areas they cover on what students' rights are in school. Students don't give up their religious rights when they walk through the door. They do not. And PGI is encouraging Christian clubs to get founded because they want to get in there and actively defend Christianity. In order to bring about the changes in the school district, the parents must review the instructional materials of their respective school districts. In particular, it is important to ensure that the districts are complying with their obligation of sending out notices to parents about before the HIV or sexual health education occurs. This has not been done in this state at all very well. We now have a law firm that's taking a look at this, and they keep good records, by the way. So it's important that the law be followed here. This must happen 1 month before the event, and they must conduct at least 1 presentation during the weekend or evening hours. And they cite Washington law here, RCW 28A. It is our strong recommendation that once a parent has performed the necessary actions, they should excuse their children from education if they deem it appropriate. We have provided an opt-out form. If you open up the booklet on the table, you'll see an instruction sheet and a Washington State opt-out form. They very specifically wrote this opt-out form for the state of Washington and no other state. They uniquely knew the law here, and they adapted the form to that. Now, important, PJI can insist in enforcing parental rights under RCW Code 28A.230.070 in several ways. If parents receive any pushback from districts when attempting to review materials, we can write legal demand letters to put the school district on notice. As I expressed in our teleconference, action may be in order to demand sufficient time to review the inordinate amount of material, as well as having the option of parents making copies at their expense. Parents must take every opportunity to serve on instructional material committees. This statute states that school districts may have parent committee membership of up to 50%. PGI is trying to address a problem. There's not enough parents like you and me on these instructional committees. They're suggesting get involved. We will come alongside you and help you out. Parental involvement is absolutely critical to this process and our overall success. The goal is to have parents in each school district reviewing their respective materials. If we find a district using sexually explicit materials, we will put together a presentation for the local news. They'll go public with this. And we will expose the school district and expose their perverse methodology. This is in writing. I have it here in writing. Okay? Lest we forget, parents have a strong voice in the school board decision-making process. A powerful demonstration could lead to the board members possessing an inkling of parental rebellion. I'm talking about the good kind of rebellion here. Then they will be forced to take your concerns and demands seriously. Okay? This is, yes, Jeff.
Can you tell the group here how much they're going to charge? How much they're going to charge?
Go ahead and ask again, Jeff.
Randall, would you tell the group how much the attorneys are going to charge?
Absolutely nothing. This is pro bono. This is all free. Finally, part 3, litigation. Parental review of this material is vital to Pacific Justice Institute for us to determine if the school districts are complying with their own standards. A violation of parental rights exists when the school curricula is inconsistent with state standards. If and when this is determined, we can challenge districts in court. Ultimately, your assistance will lead to establishing grounds for a lawsuit. A review of the Washington Administrative Codes and a determination of any inconsistencies with these statutes could provide grounds for a lawsuit. If we find that the WAC, that's Washington Administrative Code, is favorable to the parents, we will notify the school board on their failure to comply with the WAC, and we will demand immediate compliance. If they fail to do so, we can bring a legal challenge. Lawsuits are effective in giving school districts and the state of Washington notice that Pacific Justice Institute is here and ready to do battle for parents and their children. PGI did not come up to Washington to stay on the bench. They came up here to protect your rights. Conclusion, Pacific Justice Institute can provide materials and legal support to vindicate parents' and children's legal right. Our goal is to become a strategic partner with you who share the same concerns as we do. Together, we can build a network of individuals driven by their love for Jesus Christ and their children. We thank you for reaching out to us for help, and we look forward to assisting you in securing your rights.
Thank you. So you understand, we have legal folks, lawyers on our side, and we're trying to gear up against the other side. We have the technical people like Leanna who actually knows the curriculum, the appropriate curriculum we need to use. FPIW, Family Policy Institute, is about making sure we develop the right policy, we write the laws, and then we get them implemented correctly. And FPIW is also trying to build up the grassroots, because that's how you affect change. One person or one lawyer or one person who knows the right curriculum can't change it. It is you all. You have to put your blood, sweat, and tears, time, treasure, and talent, I know you've heard all those words, into this. It is a long-term fight. We are facing forces, both physical and spiritual, that are fighting us on this. They're going after our children of faith. You all know that. So I'm asking you again, thank you for showing up today, listening to us, hearing what it is. We appreciate everything you've done. You've been impressive and inspirational with the Slavic community coming out here. Keep it up, but help us get the other pastors. Help us wake up your neighbors, because right now, being honest, they're winning in our state. They're winning. But we know with God on our side, who could be against us? Thank you for coming today. I'll be here afterwards, and I'm sure the rest of us will be also to answer any questions. But remember, hope to see you in Olympia. Hope to see you on the front lanes. God bless.
Mark, can I ask you a question? Right here.
Yes.
So somebody asked me if I can ask you if that would be okay to have a sign, something like no LGBTQ propaganda for our kids. Or should we not point out to a specific group?
Well, right now, that's what the other side is. Can you hear me? Is it on?
Yeah, you.
Yes. Right
You're not
now,
on, but we hear you.
there's a few states that have something like that.
Uh-huh.
And other countries do have something like that. But in our state, they already have about 3 laws. They're trying to make it mandatory for this, and they have about 2 other bills making it mandatory in other areas. They're going every which way, making it mandatory. And like I said, there is a real movement to turn the state into an atheist state. Pure and simple. They want they don't like people of God. They're a real state, a real effort to turn this country into a socialist Marxist state. You know better than I what that means. There's a real movement to emancipate children sexually. You all know the reasons why they want to do that. They want children separated from their parents at the earliest age. So we have to stop that. That means passing laws that promotes a different ideology. Christian-based. That's how this country was formed. They want to eliminate that. So the only way we do that is if we have the votes, and I told you about the votes. We have enough Christians who think differently. So
if there will be a sign like that, will we make them even more mad at us, or it would be totally fine to point out?
I think that we must tell folks what we're upset about. You know, they're real clear to say we don't like God. You know, you're trying to build a theocracy. You know, you're just a conservative Christian. You're a radical. They'll come with all these names of why we're bad. We have to be honest. You know, we don't approve of this libertine gay sexuality. We consider it immoral. We consider it deadly. It leads to individual and societal destruction. They don't like that message. We're not saying they're mean, but we're saying that we
rather than just, I think there's an issue, we don't want to be too divisive and separate and make this a Republican issue versus Democrat, because there's Democrats that will wake up to this because it's an issue of sin and it's an issue of whether or not my child is straight or whether or not my child is not straight. I still don't want them getting sexually active with medically dangerous information, and that doesn't have anything to do with an LGBT issue. It's just with the age of what is, if it's non-marital sex, it's non-marital sex, right? So if you have a sign like that, it completely then separates us from anyone who we could get on our side, and there are a lot of parents who are concerned about kids who are confused.
We're just having rally about different bills, not about just sex ed class. It's on
I don't know.
bills.
Yeah, there's about 8 bills.
Yeah, the LGBTQ will be there as well.
Yes, because the LGBT lobbyists and Planned Parenthood are the primary writers of most of the curriculums that the OSPI are recommending.
There's also the LGBT commission bill, the transgender
Yeah.
bill, there's the abortion bill with the
That same thing where it's an attack on, it's a socio-emotional thing of separating children from their parents and also trying to put a really heavy agenda in the schools to.
Some of you, this is the way I see it. They're literally going after Christians by name. That's what it is. And as a Christian, I'm tired of being on the defensive. They'll talk about, name the group. They can speak up and say, proud black, proud gay, whatever it is, but we can't say we're a Christian and we don't approve. I mean, we have the right to say that in this country. They're saying the opposite. They're gay and they don't approve of us. Well, we can say the same thing back. At the end of the day, Americans are going to have to learn to live and learn with each other, and we'll actually come probably to a comfortable middle. But right now, they're literally trying to exclude us. I mean, to be honest, if you say you're a Christian, you're going to get fired by a lot of companies right now in America. And if you say, no, I support, Christian theology, you're going to get fired. You use the wrong pronouns, you're going to get fired. No, that's wrong.
Can I say something about elections this year? So I'm Kenny Smith, and so this year is considered like an off-year election. It's not a presidential year. It's not our state representatives. We're not voting for them, but we are voting in Clark County for, I don't know, must be 100 positions that we are going to be voting for this year, and that includes the 11 school districts in Clark County. A majority. So every school district has 5 school board members, and this year there's at least in 9 of the 11 school districts, there's a majority of the board members up for election this year. So if we could replace that, we could actually become the majority on the school board. The school boards are made up just of normal people that we have a homeschool mom a couple years ago. They said, in Battleground, somebody said, hey, why don't you run for a school board? You're in the right district, because in some, you have to live in the school district. They say, hey, you're right in the right district to run for this position. And she says, I'm a homeschool. What do I know about public schools? You're just the kind of person we need. And so she filed. They talked to her in the filing. There's 1 week during the year you can file. This year it's May 13th to 17th. And she filed, and nobody else filed. And she's been one of our best advocates in Battleground, because she just, put her name on there, and she's been a great school board member. So I really encourage you to, everybody lives in a school district, whether you're a homeschool mom or whatever, you'd make a great school board member. And there's city council, there's a whole bunch of different positions. If you go to Clark County Elections website, the top thing on there, there's a box that says open positions or open election 2019 or whatever. Click on that and it'll show you a whole long list.
Thank you for coming.
Guys, couple more things. We just gonna pray maybe. Let's do that at the end. And are there any other questions? Are we all clear for Monday? Agenda is straightforward, right? What time are we meeting in Olympia? So if we want to have 10 o'clock, right. So, but if you want to get parking closer, you will need to be there earlier for sure. So I just came from, there was a congress of many churches, so I made my announcements. So they are planning to come minimum, they said big numbers, we'll see what's going to be the turnout. I'll do another announcement tonight at 6. Well, we need to show up, that was the message, we need to be there. Pentecostal churches, they have a congress as well today. It's a big youth gathering. So I'll make another announcement at 6 o'clock there. So we'll be planning for Monday. We'll see. We're also engaging Seattle. We're engaging Spokane, Tri-Cities. So all those pastors they got notices, notes, agenda, where to meet, what it's all about, and so on. So that's what we're working on currently. So let's pray. And American friends, if you know any churches that are not engaged yet, let us know. We'll connect with them, and we'll influence those guys as well. That's what I went to other ethnic groups today. So yeah. Not many American friends are engaged, at least what I see right now. As far as guys, again, don't get me wrong here. We have big churches. We just need, if you know those people, leaders, we'll find a way. Because I am representing the multiple churches from Seattle, so and we're representing a lot of people behind us, so we can tell them who we are and why we do this, and maybe use a back door at times. Sometimes we need to use a back door to have conversations and things like that.